Part 103. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 1048. Lu Chang'an took Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong for a stroll outside. Since he didn't ride an electric bike, he didn't plan to go far away to eat. There are countless affordable and high-quality restaurants around, offering a wide range of taste experiences. The most difficult thing is choosing what to eat. Some people say that difficulty in choosing is due to poverty. If you have money, you can have everything. In fact, this is not quite right. Just like a man seeking pleasure, no matter how many women he finds, what he can actually experience is quite limited. The same goes for eating. The delicious food is unlimited, but the stomach is limited. I want to eat this and that, but not much can fit in. Even if they are wandering on the road now and seem to be able to eat up all the restaurants they see, the three giants under the plane trees cannot really eat everything. Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong did not worry about what to eat. They were reporting on what they had done today. In the morning, the two of them went to the vegetable market together. They looked at the various small animals in the market and came back without buying anything. The price of chicken wings increased by $1.50 per pound. I climbed up the mulberry tree and found that there were no mulberries to eat, but I found many small bugs when I opened the wall tiles. We went home and played on the tablet for a while. After breakfast, we went to the canteen to play cards together. When Shang Guandandan won 5 yuan, the two of them bought sweet ginger to eat. At noon, a branch as thick as a chopstick fell on Zhou Dongdong's head. Shang Guandandan carefully crushed a burned briquette and then filled a road pit. Zhou Dongdong folded the paper airplane, and when she breathed into it, the paper airplane was inserted into her throat. In the afternoon, the two of them took a nap under the electric heating table. After waking up, she went to the rice noodle store to check out the store's business. Shang Guandandan had been playing with the cash register for a long time, pressing every button. She also wanted a cash register to connect to her vending machine, but the cashier refused to let her move. Zhou Shuling was not in the store, and she and Li Hongfang were busy with the opening of the new store. Paying attention to the business of the store was also hard work. When I got a little tired, I went home. The two of them began to sit under the sycamore tree, roast chestnuts and eat walnuts, waiting for Lu Chang'an to come back. Report completed. What a rich and fulfilling day, Lu Chang'an said to Zhou Dongdong. In the future, you must learn to keep a diary. Just like you just said, record everything you have done, add some mood, weather, the environment, and conversation with people would be nice. I don't write a diary, Zhou Dongdong shouted. Ouch! Ouch! Hearing the little master yell, Lu Xin, who was following behind, quickly responded, shaking his head and running over to follow Zhou Dongdong. If you don't want to write, you won't write. Why are you barking like a dog? Ouch! Strengthening the mountain, the world is full of energy. The times are not good, but the glory is not gone. What can be done if the glory is not gone? What can be done if the misfortune is coming? Shang Guan recited a poem. Okay, what poem are you reading again? Do you have any feelings or moods that you would like to express in poetry? Lu Chang'an has never been able to understand the words and deeds of these two people. Dongdong ao, just like the word 11 in this poem, don't you understand? Shang Guandandan swiped his palm with his fingers while teaching Mozi earnestly to learn to understand the words and deeds of the children. Strengthen the mountain. The world is overwhelming. The times are unfavorable. The glory will not fade away. The glory will not fade away. But what can be done? What can I do? Lu Chang'an changed it, and felt that there was no problem. Shang Guandandan chuckled. This was the style that suited Xiang Yu. Zhou Dongdong, Qingming Festival is another festival for memorizing poems. On this day, children must learn Qingming Festival poems. Have you learned them? Lu Chang'an gave Zhou Dongdong a test as usual. The average child must memorize 300 Tang poems before elementary school. Zhou Dongdong made it from kindergarten to elementary school with one song Ode to the Goose and 1/8 of the song Grass. I've learned it, Zhou Dongdong touched Lucine's dog head and said. Although reciting poems is useless, who makes Brother Chang'an like it? Zhou Dongdong also had to follow him and memorize whatever he wanted to deal with him. Then memorize it. Lu Chang'an remembered that the Qingming poem he learned at this time was Du Mu's Qingming. It rains heavily during the Qingming festival, and passers-by encounter ghosts on the road. What? It rains heavily during the Qingming festival, and passers-by encounter ghosts on the road. Lu Chang'an couldn't help but fell into deep thought. She could only recite a few sentences and forget it. She was so wrong. Such performance was on par with Zhu Huntang. Could it be that Zhou Dongdong was also her biological child? No. Lu Chang'an came to his senses vigilantly. He couldn't acquiesce that being uneducated and ignorant was in line with the characteristics of his descendants. Lu Chang'an will definitely not be like this in the future. Zhou Dongdong is like this just because she is Zhou Shuling's child. It does not mean that she has inherited the characteristics of Lu Chang'an's descendants who must be uneducated. The source of her learning spirit and ability is Zhou Shuling. It rains heavily during the Qingming festival. Pedestrians encounter ghosts on the road and ask about the graves to dance. The shepherd boy points to Jifangzi in the distance. Shang Guan chuckled and completed Zhou Dongdong's poem. Zhou Dongdong quickly followed Shang Guan Dandan and read it aloud. Lu Chang'an vowed for the second time today that when he teaches Lu Jianqian to recite Tang poetry, he will first throw Shang Guan Dandan out of the atmosphere and fly around the earth. Just as she was about to correct Zhou Dongdong's poem Qingming, Shang Guan Dandan's cell phone rang. She answered the call and chatted for a few words before handing the phone to Lu Chang'an. The call was from Zhongqing. After chatting for a few words, Lu Chang'an hung up the phone, returned the phone to Shang Guan Dandan, and muttered, "Why don't you just call me if you have anything?" He took out his cell phone. It turned out that his cell phone had not been turned on, so it was okay. "Let's go, Zhongqing treats us to grilled fish." Lu Chang'an took the two little people to the roadside and waited for Zhongqing to pick them up. "By the way, I bought 2 bunches of strawberries with syrup for them to eat." The colorful bunches of candied berry slices in the pantry are also very beautiful. They are common subjects in humanistic photography that simply outline beautiful colors. From now on, when you take Shang Guan Dandan and Zhou Dongdong out to play, you should bring a camera with you. These two are still very photogenic. Shang Guan Dandan is the type who looks exquisite no matter how you take pictures, while Zhou Dongdong is all stupid and naive. The expressions of being in a daze and looking up at the sky with your mouth open are particularly interesting. They had just finished swallowing the strawberries with syrup when Zhongqing's car stopped on the side of the road. Lu Chang'an opened the back door and let them get in with the dog. Lu Chang'an sat in the passenger seat as usual, then tilted his head and sniffed. "What's wrong?" Zhongqing asked quickly. She was a little unsure now, so she was a little sensitive to this kind of action. Could it be that he thought she had a bad breath? There shouldn't be. She is in good health, and her Helicobacter pylori test is negative. She pays attention to oral hygiene, brushes her teeth more than 6 times a day, and carries mouthwash and breath-freshening gumdrops with her. The third wife has also been given drugs to improve physical function. She has never. "I feel like I have a mouth odor problem. Could it be body odor? Not to mention, I didn't sweat much today." After all, Zhang Xinhan and Jin Xiaomei were running around. They peed twice, but they still smelled clean and maintained. "Went to eat grilled fish, and then, you brought a fish yourself?" Lu Chang'an asked. "Yes. Do I smell fishy?" Zhongqing sneered, his face changing slightly. "No, before I got in the car, I smelled something like fish in your trunk." The temperature there was relatively low. "It should be a fish in an insulated box," Lu Chang'an explained, looking at Zhongqing's face. The girl seems a little extra sensitive today. Ah, so that's it. Let me just say, I just asked the kitchen to pack and load the car, and I didn't touch the fish or the incubator during the whole process. Zhongqing breathed a sigh of relief, and pulled himself up again. The hem of the skirt shrinks due to tension. Is there a fish in the car? Zhou Dongdong asked from behind. Is it a whale? We can't eat whales. Whales are human beings' good friends. No, Lu Chang'an didn't know what kind of fish it was, but he was sure it wasn't a whale. At the same time, he was very suspicious that Zhou Dongdong would eat a whale sooner or later, and it wouldn't be simply buying some whale meat in the supermarket, but probably in the sea. Chasing a whale bite. Zhou Dongdong nodded, disappointed and relieved. After all, whales are human beings' good friends. You cannot eat whales, but if they are already cooked, you can still eat a little bit. Next time Yaya comes to play with me, I will let her trade the whale with me. Shang Guandandan reached out to touch his thermos, only to realize that he had forgotten to bring it out, so he touched Zhou Dongdong's soft forget it. What's the deal with you? Lu Chang'an was alert. He always had a feeling that Shang Guandandan and Qin Yanan were secretly doing something, or rather messing with him. The lights in the car were dim and orange, and her quiet, dark eyes slowly turned from left to right, avoiding looking at him, leaving a piece of white for him to see. A happy family must be one where the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law live in harmony and share a little secret that is not known to the son. Just like the TV series I watched recently, the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law caught the mistress together and finally sent the son to the Antarctic. He monitored changes in the Earth's magnetic field and sent his mistress to Mexico to become an anti-drug ambassador. In the end, the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law lived a happy life without shame. Xiao Zhongqing, what kind of fish are you bringing? Shang Guandandan spoke to someone else. Done. Zonking's voice was very soft. Every time Shang Guandandan called her little Zhongqing, she felt particularly comfortable, as if she was really a little girl in Shang Guandandan's eyes. She and Shang Guandandan will also become softer when he speaks, but it's not those dragon kings. It's more than 100 kilograms. It was originally the main ingredient of Zuji restaurant this week, so I requisitioned it first. A dragon weighing over 100 kilograms. Lu Chang'an touched his belly with secret satisfaction and expectation. He had been poor in material life for many years, and he had not eaten such a big dragon crab for a long time. It is said that the bigger the dragon worm is, the more delicious it is, but in fact, the dragon worm weighing more than 100 kilograms is delicious enough, but the fish's chin and belly are not as filling as the king dragon worm, which weighs several hundred kilograms. We finally ate the dragon among the 12 zodiac signs today, Zhou Dongdong said happily. She had always envied her brother Chang'an for eating the 12 zodiac signs, but the most difficult thing to eat among the 12 zodiac signs was the dragon. As long as he ate, if you get the dragon, you can slowly get other zodiac signs in the future. Done. Dragon, dragon is stewed and eaten. Lu Chang'an closed his eyes and stopped arguing and explaining with Zhou Dongdong, just like arguing with Zhu Huntang many times was meaningless. The dragon is either a dragon or an ordinary fish, but this one is particularly big, with a big head and a big belly. When it stands up, it is as tall as Zhou Dongdong. Zhongqing stared straight ahead and spoke softly. Zhou Dongdong explained. Probably the paraventricular nucleus and supraoptic nucleus of the hypothalamus have been a little excited recently. They always like to take a few amino acids to frequently synthesize oxytocin, which is secreted in large quantities in the posterior lobe of the pituitary gland. Not only do I have the urge to have a baby, but I also feel the urge to have a baby when I see a cute baby. Overflowing with maternal love, I always find them particularly cute. Zhou Dongdong gestured with himself up and down with his hands, and finally understood how big a fish it was. Zhou Dongdong had only seen such big fish in Zhu Huntang's aquarium. They were fish that Zhou Dongdong had never eaten before. is the word supporter that appears more frequently now, describing a staunch supporter. Yifen Wenji writes, every 1,680 kilograms is one. This kind of fish can be named long naturally, it's because it can grow big enough. Earlier, dragons in the sea were often hundreds of years old and grew to more than 1,000 kilograms, but now those weighing more than 100 kilograms are relatively rare, Lu Chang'an said with some regret. There are fewer dragons and dragons, naturally because there are more people, but we must also look at the problem dialectically. For example, the number of people in China is a bit small now. 1.5 billion is not enough, and 2 billion is almost enough. It only needs to be reduced by more than 100 million. If the Ansa people, who are good at production, specialize in plunder, and are extravagant and wasteful, free up the space they occupy, they can support 500 million more hard-working and peace-loving Chinese people, and the world will be much better. More than 1,000 kilograms, Zhou Dongdong was shocked. Do we need to eat it for a day to finish it? Zhou Dongdong has no clear concept of the number 1,000. After all, the first grade of elementary school only learns the understanding of numbers within 100. The camel we ate last time weighed more than 1,000 kilograms. Lu Chang'an gave her an intuitive reference. Ouch, Zhou Dongdong understood. Xiao Zhongqing, such a big fish, can we invite Dongdong's mother to eat together? Shang Guandandan was a little thinking about his beloved daughter-in-law. Dongdong's mother was working diligently to open a new store. How can we forget her when we have delicious food? In the management of the harem, the most important thing is not to let down the efforts and let the efforts be rewarded, so that everyone can be inspired, and under the guidance of correct values, the entire family can thrive. Of course. I'll send her the address later. Zhongqing nodded. A dragon's head weighing more than 100 kilograms is more than 100 kilograms of usable ingredients. There is almost no inedible waste. So do these people. More than enough. After all, although I ate a camel last time, most of it was packaged and distributed to people in the entire community. At that time, the family under the sycamore tree, plus Jinyanan, Zhu Huntang, and Zhongqing, did not eat too much. Many. Thank you all for your generous tips and requests. I recommend an interesting book. My free wife is actually a boss in the world. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 1049. The place Zhongqing planned was not far away, at Zhezhou. When the car got off the overpass in the middle of Zhezhou Bridge, Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong became excited because Lu Chang'an had brought them here to play and even took a small train that neither of them wanted to get off. There are indeed several cartoon-shaped trains here, which are very cute and suitable for real children like Zhou Dongdong and naive little old ladies like Shang Guandandan. In the past, Orange Island was divided into two sections. The upper section was called Niutu Island, and the lower section was called Shuulu Island. Later, it was gradually connected to form a whole Orange Island. There were only a few orange trees on Shuulu Island, but there were many orange trees on Niutu Island, and the scenery was also it is far better than Shuuluzhu, so in the pre-liberation era, powerful and famous people often built many villas in Niutuzhu. After getting off the bus, Lu Chang'an recalled the past and the present as usual and explained like a competent tour guide. September 23, 1925 was a Wednesday. The Ta Kung Pao of that day published an article signed by Mr. S.I. It was recorded that there are often jingshis among the orange groves, as if walking deep into the solitary mountain of the West Lake. At that time the famous Tangshenzi mansion is located in Zhezhou, and people often think it is the place where the Golden House hides the beauty. Later, people learned in a brief account of a floating life that the prelude to the Northern Expedition and the Great Revolution actually kicked off in this mansion. At that time, the villas of Zhengfenggang, Lijianzang, Chenhuikan, Zhongrunong, and Tongmichan were also built here. Lu Chang'an sighed to Zhongqing standing next to him. Zhongqing was slightly embarrassed. Except for Zhengfenggang, I have never heard of anyone else. Haha, you are considered a native of Taiwan. You were too young when you left Juncha and did not complete the 9-year compulsory education. It would be good to know Zhangfenggang. Most locals in Juncha don't know the names of the people I mentioned. Lu Chang'an shook his head with a smile. Those who have passed away will last through the ages, but only a few will be famous throughout the world. Can't you take out the fish first and then pick up the girl? Shang Guan asked in confusion. She was standing with Zhou Dongdong, groping around on the trunk of Zonking's car, their hands moving in unison, like windshield wipers. Zhongqing blushed slightly, and she suddenly thought, why didn't the third wife come to participate in an occasion like this today, which was similar to a family activity? Just like going to the amusement park today, such an activity will definitely promote the relationship between two people. It's just that the third wife is worried about not wanting to ask Lu Chang'an the answer directly, or she can't let go of her posture. Zhongqing couldn't help but realize that if she wanted to pursue a man, it was better for a woman to take the initiative and not be so reserved and proud. But this kind of understanding may not be suitable for Lu Chang'an. She took the initiative, but was knocked unconscious by his slap, which became a shame in life. Thinking of this, Zhongqing still stared at him faintly. Women can really care about this kind of thing for a lifetime. Lu Chang'an didn't hear Shang Guandandan's nonsense, so he naturally ignored it and didn't bother to care. Zhongqing opened the trunk door and saw a cold fresh insulated box placed diagonally inside, with an external refrigeration component with a power supply. The trunk volume of this car is not small, but the width is limited. The fish itself is very long, and the insulated box can only be placed diagonally like this. Shang Guandandan reached out and moved it, gritted his teeth and yelled yet twice before giving up. It's too heavy, I can't move it. Shang Guandandan rubbed the palms of his hands and said to Lu Chang'an, who was walking over. Lu Chang'an slapped her palm, pulled out the incubator, and held it with both hands. Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong quickly followed, reaching out to support the bottom of the incubator, one on the left and the other on the right, to help him save some energy and do their part. Where to put it? Zhongqing led the way, passing through a crescent gate surrounded by green bamboo, and came to the back of a so-called Republic of China-style building. Here were kitchen tables, knives, and tableware. There was a bright light behind a sliding door in front. It is a kitchen with bright and clean windows, and there are a few kitchen staff standing inside who don't seem to be very busy. Let's not talk about the quality of the restaurant, but there is no peculiar smell in the back of the kitchen. There is no visible kitchen waste and no shiny floor tiles. There are also a few simple tables and chairs. It is a suitable place for barbecue and rest. Lu Chang'an placed the incubator next to the kitchen table and looked at it. This was originally the third lady's villa in Zhezhou. It is equipped with a fairly good kitchen with complete utensils. Today we will cook grilled fish here, Zhongqing introduced. Zhezhou also has her villa. After Lu Chang'an finished speaking, he remembered that Zhu Huntang seemed to have mentioned it, but she didn't seem to have been to this place very often. Of course, private villas are not allowed to be built here in Orange Island, but as long as you pay the entrance fee, rent, and various management fees in the name of a commercial restaurant, you can operate part of the villa as a restaurant and the other parts as private living. The scenic spot has no control over the use of the residents. As for whether the restaurant is doing well or not, neither the third lady nor the scenic spot care. Zhongqing pointed to the inconspicuous restaurant sign. There is only one candle lit next to the signboard, and there are many bamboo shadows. If the tourists in the past did not come here specifically for the famous restaurant, it would be difficult to find that there is a restaurant here. The boss does not seem to pursue the prosperity of the family. She doesn't come here often, does she? Lu Chang'an asked smoothly. I came here recently. That day, classmate Yan was tutoring her in foreign languages. She said she wanted to remember the martyrs and recall the painful history of resisting the invasion of foreign powers. She felt heavy-hearted. Every time she read a foreign letter, she was in pain. She couldn't learn the language used by the foreign powers, so she just ran here. Jin Xiaomei told Zhongqing about this. Lu Chang'an raised his hand, let's cook. When cooking, he immersed himself in the art of cutting and cooking. His mind was cleansed, and the mental pollution and resentment caused by Zhu Huntang would also be eliminated. Zhou Dongdong has already opened the incubator, and Shang Guandandan is waving a kitchen knife belonging to Zhang Xiaoquan, ready to show off his skills. This is not a home kitchen, but more like playing outside. Shang Guandandan's resistance to being dominated by Lu Chang'an in housework was not very strong. Lu Chang'an took the knife away from her hand. With this knife, he was afraid that he would not be able to cut vegetables and would have to relearn the knife skills of a Michelin chef. In fact, Zhang Xiaoquan's kitchen knife cannot enter Zhu Huntang's kitchen. I don't know how there is one here. It may be because it has been sharpened and the president of the brand can lick all the hemorrhoids he purchased, so it was included in the purchase list. Sir, do you need me to help you? A middle-aged man dressed neatly in chef's clothes said to Lu Chang'an with a smile. Thank you, I won't use it for now. I'll help you in the kitchen later. Lu Chang'an smiled and thanked him, but he had to cut and process this kind of ingredients himself, just like the bridal chamber rarely hires someone to replace it. The middle-aged man nodded and retreated behind Zhongqing. The smile on his lips became even bigger. The young man wanted to handle such a big fish alone. Is there business today? Zhongqing looked back. Actually, business is going well now. We received a total of 5 tables of customers for lunch and dinner today, and there is still 1 table of customers. It took a long time to eat, and it was also filming and interviewing. It seems to be a food review or something, right? Middle-aged men report. Lu Chang'an had already put on his chef's hat and apron, and took out the dragon's head from the incubator. Wow! Ah! Oh my god! Ouch, ouch! The huge size of the dragon turtle attracted attention. Lu Chang'an patted the fish's body and confirmed that it was a real dragon turtle. In fact, many online food up owners now claim to be trying videos of dragon pods, including some up owners with millions of fans on Station 13, but they are not using real dragon pods, but some other varieties of larger groupers. Just fish. Of course, the dragon grouper itself is also a species of grouper. As long as you see those videos, the up owners directly use knives or scale scrapers to deal with them, not dragons, but other types of groupers. Because the real dragon's scales grow under the fish skin and are wrapped in thick fish skin. It has a special structure. You can only peel off the fish skin first and then remove the fish scales piece by piece. However, convention is more important than anything else. Even biologists must respect everyone's unified name. Now everyone calls the larger grouper the dragon, so let's leave it like that. There is nothing to argue or care about. Dong, put your head in the fish's mouth and see if it can hold your head in one mouthful. Shang Guandandan directed Zhou Dongdong to do what she wanted to see. Wait a minute, it will eat me. Zhou Dongdong shook his head vigorously. Although he put the fish head on his head and declared that he was the dragon general, which was very majestic, the fish was too big, which made the children a little scared. Lu Chang'an nodded happily. This fish is very powerful, it can take a small shark in one bite. At this time, several chefs also came to watch the fun. As a chef, who wouldn't want to actually cook such ingredients? This is the dream career of a chef. Frying a few eggs all day long, chopping a few tomatoes and broccoli, stirring a bunch of this and that to make juice and smash them. What kind of cooking skills is that? The dragon's head had already been bled. Lu Chang'an peeled off some skin from behind the fish's head. He then put his hand in the fish's mouth and took off the fish's head. What kind of knife skills is this? The middle-aged man, who was originally the chef of the restaurant, could only be astonished at this time. Even though he had decades of fish-killing skills in the market, he had dealt with countless fish-killing fish of hundreds of kilograms under his hands. King can't do it so easily and cut off his head with a single blow. I don't need your help, so I have the confidence, Zhongqing said with a smile. It was her first time to see Lu Chang'an's sword skills, but she felt that he could do it to a wonderful level. Lu Chang'an carefully peeled off the skin and then removed the internal organs. With 2 cuts, he divided the fish body into 2 pieces of pure fish meat, leaving only the fish tail and a pure white crystal backbone. The backbone of this big dragon's chest was called dragon marrow in ancient times. Many old people who like to take care of it will go around to buy dragon's chest spine. After eating it, they can still give birth to a son at the age of 80. Please take care of the fish skin, and then steam part of it. Stir-fry the fish belly and fish intestines. Let's make soup with the fish neck bones, shark fins, fish tail and bones. Make minced peppers for the fish head, cut some fish meat into fish, and make fish belly, fish meat, and fish. The bones, fish chin, neck and some fish skin were used to make grilled fish. Lu Chang'an thought about it and ate it like this. It's really amazing. In just a few minutes, it took several people working together to cut up the big dragon's meat that might not have been able to be finished in half an hour, the chef said with conviction. At first, I thought it was an honored guest received by Zhongqing personally, probably someone from the 2nd generation. How could I know that he had such skill? It seems that the ancients could only do this when they met the cookting to untie the cow. Thank you, Lu Chang'an was polite. That's how awesome my brother Chang'an is. Zhou Dongdong was not polite. He was very happy that others praised his favorite and most admired brother Chang'an, and loudly proclaimed, he even ate a dragon. Tongyanwuji, Lu Chang'an said quickly. The chef laughed twice, but he couldn't tell that the young man was quite traditional. Now the dragon didn't mean that the emperor would commit any taboos. The dragon had become a waiter. I still want to make a few more cuts. Shang Guandandan found a new long knife. He regretted that he did not participate in the process of processing the ingredients, so he had to use the knife to chop the surrounding bamboo horizontally and vertically. Zhou Dongdong picked up a bamboo that Shang Guandandan had chopped off, and rode on it, dragging the leafy bamboo shoots around. The kitchen brought a charcoal-lit barbecue grill, as well as marinated ingredients and seasonings, and Lu Chang'an was ready to show off his skills. As for the steaming, frying, and stir-frying processes, he left them to the kitchen. Actually, we can also cook it at Bailong Center, but I think it feels more like having a barbecue outdoors. Zhongqing accompanied Lu Chang'an, looking at the red-hot charcoal, the white and tender fish meat, and the juice spilling out of Lu Chang'an's body, and very similar fresh scent to bamboo hoontang. Look how much fun they are having. He then pointed at Shang Guandandan, who had thrown away his kitchen knife and was using a water pipe on the grass to collect water everywhere. Lu Chang'an also took a look and remembered that Shang Guandandan was sitting in the Vyang Palace, sitting in a small carriage pulled by 2 fruit horses, bumping around in the garden, swatting butterflies and catching insects, and fell off the carriage after a while. One moment he fell into the water, and the next moment he spun around and fell down. But at that time, Lu Chang'an entered the Vyang Palace secretly, and Shang Guandandan was still young. She was just a queen who had not grown up and had little strength. She could only survive by relying on the service of the palace maids. 80% of the people in the city actually live in a low hypoxic environment. Outdoor oxygen is more abundant, the brain is more active, and the response to various stimuli is stronger, so there is what you said, feeling. Lu Chang'an explained Zonking's yearning for outdoor activities from a scientific perspective. So that's the case. Is this why many people like outdoor activities? Zhongqing bit his lips and said with a hint of charm in his eyes. Lu Chang'an thought for a while and nodded. For ordinary men, if they are in forests, grasslands and other places with higher oxygen content, their continuous exercise ability will indeed be slightly improved. Last year UN Professor Lu rented a room in Bailong Center and often went out for outdoor sports. Is this also the reason? Seeing this, Zhongqing pretended to change the topic naturally. Lu Chang'an's eyes fell on a piece of fish skin. The fish skin of dragonfly has no fishy smell. The skin is thick and rich in collagen. It looks crystal clear and trembles like jelly, but it is still crisp enough and has comparable nutritional value. Fish maw. Professor Lu is such a delicious woman, but like the fish skin in front of him, she fell into Lu Chang'an's hands, but he did not eat her, but used some techniques to make her more delicious. Did the third wife ask you to ask? Lu Chang'an guessed the truth after a brief analysis. Zhongqing is also a woman and likes gossip, but she has professionalism and self-control. No matter how interested she is, she will not rashly test this kind of privacy. Zhongqing was a little surprised, but he still breathed a sigh of relief. It was easier to talk than to test in a roundabout way, especially in front of Lu Chang'an. She knew very well that with people like Lu Chang'an, there was nothing wrong with joking and laughing with him, but if she really provoked him, the sense of oppression he exuded would even exceed the power that the third wife could bring to Zhongqing. Otherwise, when the third wife came back this time, how could she be so hesitant about Lu Chang'an's many things? This is not the style Zhongqing is familiar with. In fact, her temperament hasn't changed much, but she has become more cautious in doing things. Your boss used to be a little arrogant. He suffered a loss from me and a loss from Tesla. Now he has learned to be more cautious. Lu Chang'an smiled. From the perspective of ordinary people, Su Mei's life can be called a legend. Even if Lu Chang'an were to comment, he would not think that many women in history could live a more wonderful life than her. The leader of the evil forces in the world mentioned by Zhu Huntang is actually not a high hat either. Suffering a loss from Lu Chang'an and Tesla cannot be regarded as a stain or a shame. How many people do not suffer from these two? In other words, except for Lu Chang'an and Tesla, no one can suppress Su Mei. If Lu Chang'an turns into a dragon and goes away one day, Tesla will forever rule the ice field, and Su Mei will be the queen of this world. Oh, I forgot about Shang Guandandan. This creature is a random, unpredictable variable, so it's normal to forget to include her. But her feelings for you have never changed. Zhongqing also spared no effort. After all, where there are people, there are rivers and lakes, and there is politics. If in the future, as Zhu Huntang often claims, a bamboo harem force will be formed, Zhongqing is naturally included in this faction, so how can he not seize the opportunity to help the leader of his own faction? Zhongqing never thought that she might not have the opportunity to participate in this kind of struggle. After all, she and Lu Chang'an were considered friends. They were also familiar with each other. They would send private photos and talk about ambiguous topics when they had nothing to do. She wanted to refuse but welcomed the temptation. As flirtatious as this is, it is entirely possible that one day the gun will go off. What's more, the third wife is well versed in the art of struggle and knows very well that the final victory of any factional struggle relies on two things: living longer and having more people. That would definitely bring in a loyal maid like Zhongqing. Zhongqing was right. At this point of their long love, Lu Chang'an could only nod his head in affirmation. For Zhu Huntang's sake, I can't argue with her. As long as she doesn't go too far in the future, it will be fine. After all, I hope everyone will accept the guidance of the core values of socialism and be correct and active in modern human society. Life. I also hope that I can set an example for her and her group of extraordinary creatures, and guide them to live in harmony. Lu Chang'an actually has the same attitude towards alien beasts, but those alien beasts obviously have their own ambitions and appeals to human interests. In Lu Chang'an's eyes, there are hierarchies within the human race, but his affinity to the entire human race is still higher than that of other creatures, whether extraordinary or not. After all, when he is really angry, the so-called extraordinary creatures are just a little more powerful than ants. If they are destroyed, they will be destroyed. Zhongqing felt unhappy. Even if he didn't complete today's task, he would have made a great contribution by reporting these words to Su Mei. No matter how hard Zhang Xinhan tried, he couldn't compare. It's the end of the month, please give me a monthly pass. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 1050. Zhongqing knew very well that after she knew the shocking secrets and the future technology mastered by Sumei, she could no longer leave the Zhu family. She has lost the so-called freedom of career choice and freedom of life, but she will also gain more. She is still relatively junior now, but she will become a core figure sooner or later. This is also the direction Sumei has trained her in. From this point of view, Zhang Xinhan is not someone Zhongqing needs to be wary of. The only person who may compete with Zhongqing is probably Jin Xiaomei, but that may be many years later, after Zhu Huntang takes over. Of course, judging from Jin Xiaomei's current sensible attitude, she may not become Zhongqing's friend, but people will change. In the future, as Zhu Huntang becomes deeply involved in various affairs, Jin Xiaomei will naturally grow stronger. It's normal for your mentality to change at that time. But, as long as Zhongqing really takes down Lu Chang'an, that is, if he didn't slap her in the face that night, but something else happened, her position will be extremely stable. Sometimes Zhongqing really envies Bai Hui. The ignorant little cousin can simply have an affair with Lu Chang'an, but Zhongqing's identity and age are destined. Even if she simply admires a man like Lu Chang'an, she needs to consider many complexities. And the real problem. Lu Yuwang is indeed a woman who can attract a lot of attention. Lu Chang'an did not forget the question raised by Zhongqing. He chatted with her not to change the topic, but because Zhongqing was a smart, intelligent woman with normal logic and clear thinking. It was very comfortable to chat with her. Relatively speaking, chatting with creatures like Guan Dandan and Zhu Huntang is no different from torture. Many times, even Lu Chang'an can't keep up with their thoughts. It's probably like trying to have a normal conversation in a mental hospital, but the other party wants to communicate with you about the same condition. A feeling of. As for Zhou Dongdong, after all, she is just a stupid child. We cannot put any requirements on her thinking, logic, and language level. In ancient times, Professor Lu would have definitely brought disaster to the country and the people. Only women who are always associated with the emperor can be comparable to her. Zhongqing was also a little envious. He had seen Lu Yuwang several times, and his temperament excellent. The most touching thing is that she is already middle-aged, and her eyes and expressions often reveal a hint of girlish innocence. Even women will be excited when they see her. Probably no matter what age a man is, he will feel that this is his first love. The way it should be. And Nuan looks almost exactly like Lu Yuwang. She is very beautiful, cute, and has a great figure, but relatively speaking, she lacks a unique charm that is hard to find in the world. But that was Lu Chang'an's girlfriend. There might be some unique charm that only Lu Chang'an could appreciate. Zhongqing couldn't say anything about An Nuan or compare her with Lu Yuwang. It's not a problem in this aspect. I always feel that it's rare for an ordinary person to be as beautiful as she is and still live her little life peacefully. Lu Chang'an has seen too many beauties with bad luck. Example. In ancient times, there were many beautiful women. Because they grew up in areas that were not very prosperous, were raised in a boudoir where no one knew them, or were wealthy and had the ability to protect themselves, it was not surprising that they lived their lives peacefully. Once the reputation of a woman of this level spreads, she will inevitably attract the covetousness of the powerful. Lu Chang'an has said before that beautiful women were a very rare and precious resource in ancient times, especially in the chaotic era of the spring and autumn and warring states periods, when many wars the source is to rob a certain woman. Professor Lu grew up in an era where information was widely disseminated and personal images were circulated at will. She was actually quite famous and had a wide social circle. Could it be that the rich and powerful people who knew her were all gentlemen like Takanoning, and they would respect her as much as she wanted? For now, no one can do anything to Professor Lu. She is safe and sound, and her flowers bloom beautifully without being damaged by wind or rain. Even the bees and butterflies that came smelling the fragrance dare not touch the delicate pollen stamens directly. My heart is just buzzing around. It's rare, but is there a problem? Zhongqing asked with some confusion. This is probably luck. There are always people in this world who are especially favored by gods. She doesn't naively think that it's just that everyone is civilized now. There was no rape of civilian girls. As a comparison, Teacher Yan, who was also the campus beauty of Hunan University like Professor Lu, had a completely different fate. After graduation, Teacher Yan became a rural teacher. The establishment has not been resolved for many years. His salary was often not paid, and he lost contact with his classmates. He almost lost contact with his classmates. He has become a forgotten person, Lu Chang'an said with emotion. Yan Hui was targeted by Su Mei back then, but now her fate has been reversed by Lu Chang'an, but this has created an even sharper contrast. Su Mei doesn't know why, but she has no intention of targeting Lu Yuang. Lu Yuang work and life have gone smoothly over the years, and Su Mei even gave Lu Yuang's parents health products as gifts. Comparing people to each other makes people angry. Teacher Yan has a good daughter, which was originally a hope. Now that Teacher Yan is in good physical and mental condition, going back to work is not only for living, but also to contribute to the education of my hometown. Zhongqing has also met Yan Hui. Zhu Huntang received her last time and sent a helicopter to take Yan Hui back to her hometown the next morning. He doesn't know why this eldest lady is so enthusiastic about Yan Hui. This morning at the amusement park, your third wife met Lu Yuang and said that when she first met Lu Yuang, she felt something was wrong with Lu Yuang. Lu Chang'an frowned. What I suspect now is, Lu Yuang may be similar to Shang Guandandan, a magical creature. Ah, Zhongqing didn't expect that Lu Chang'an would suddenly have an idea. He couldn't help but glance at Shang Guandandan, who was still playing with the water pipe. She pushed the water pipe under Zhou Dongdong's crotch and asked Zhou Dongdong to clamp the water pipe and point it toward the sky. Squirt, and then she takes pictures here and behind. The difference between Lu Yuang and Shang Guandandan is that Shang Guandandan is in a semi-awakened state, confused but has already shown magical abilities. Lu Yuang is completely unawakened and thinks he is an ordinary person. Maybe one day a god will suddenly possess him and speak the truth, or he may turn into an alien and say that he has been monitoring the earth for many years and that advanced civilization is about to come. Lu Chang'an pinched his chin and said, obviously he didn't really have anything. The discovery of meaning was simply that something was wrong with Lu Yuang. Zhongqing laughed out loud. It seemed that Lu Chang'an had no clue, even he had no clue about the matter, so others should stop guessing. Zhongqing will definitely not be able to provide Lu Chang'an with any clues or inspiration about this kind of matter. I guess Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang can get some inspiration by talking about it. I don't know what the third lady is doing now. Zhongqing turned his head and glanced at the other side of the river island, surrounded by white lights, like the Bailong Center on the stairway to heaven. Here, let's eat fish. After the fish meat was marinated, it was easily grilled. Lu Chang'an called Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong to come over and eat fish. After the two of them played for a while, the entire lawn looked like it had been flooded. Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong took two large square plates and stood in front of the barbecue pit, watching Lu Chang'an add the final ingredients to the grilled fish. After the fish is grilled, the outside is browned and slightly crispy, the fat bursts, and the various colors of seasonings exude a rich aroma. When poked with a tong, the meat inside is as white as garlic cloves. It's not unreasonable for the dragon crab to be very popular in Guangdong, Hong Kong, and Macau. Foodies of all levels flock to it after smelling the taste of the dragon crab. Let's eat some fish meat pads to fill our stomachs first. The other parts will be more delicious later. Lu Chang'an gave them 2 pieces each. Each piece was only about the size of a palm, and was relatively thin and easy to taste. Dong Dong, you should eat more fish. All parts of fish are rich in DHA, which is good for brain development and health care, Zhongqing said to Zhou Dongdong with a smile. Only after he finished speaking did he realize that Zhou Dongdong's figure was vague and finally disappeared. It was gone, and I couldn't help but be surprised, and then I felt that it was similar. When I thought about it carefully, it seemed that this was not the first time that the scene had happened, and I felt relieved. That's it. Lu Chang'an suddenly woke up and nodded. Why is that so? Shang Guandandan asked curiously, as he had only eaten a little bit, his mouth was not full of fish meat, and he was not controlled by the dragon fish yet. Eating fish can make you smart. Zhou Dongdong has always wanted to eat whales. She probably knows that she needs to eat as much fish as a whale to become smart. Lu Chang'an discovered the truth. Giggle. Shang Guandandan originally wanted to protect his good friend, but persecuting children was a daily routine for mothers and children, so he couldn't help but laugh happily. Zhongqing also laughed. After catching a piece of fish on a plate, he was about to feed it to Lu Chang'an first. He noticed that Shang Guandandan was also trying to feed Lu Chang'an. He hesitated for a moment, and then made eye contact with Shang Guandandan. He gave up the act of feeding and instead gave her an encouraging look. Zhongqing then raised the corners of his mouth slightly with understanding, showing a shy smile, and extended a chopstick to Lu Chang'an's mouth. Shang Guandandan nodded with satisfaction. As a mother, the meaning of existence in the harem is of course not to compete with the daughters-in-law for Mozi's favor, but to control and arrange the time and opportunities for the daughters-in-law to spend time with Mozi. In the past, the Empress Dowager had the greatest say in who would accompany the emperor when traveling for summer vacation, who would be arranged at the palace, and who would be waiting in the middle of the journey. The emperor usually only emphasized that a certain concubine should accompany them, not all of them. It's up to him to decide. Feeding the chef means respecting the workers, so there is no ambiguity. Lu Chang'an opened his mouth to eat naturally and nodded with satisfaction. The beauty is good, the dragon is good, and his cooking skills are also good. They complement each other. I went to barbecue with you before, but I never thought that your barbecue skills were much better than those of the master chefs, Zhongqing said with emotion. It's all the ingredients you arranged. It's hard for a clever woman to make a meal without rice. I'm just the icing on the cake. Lu Chang'an is very well educated, so of course he would say something modest at this time to show off. He baked another batch, and Zhongqing gave it to the staff in the kitchen. After all, this is where people work, and they have to ask others to process it, and share some for everyone to eat, so as to appease people's hearts and avoid others' jealousy to the greatest extent. Then add something to your dish. This is why when you go out to eat in a restaurant, you should never offend the waiter before the food is served. At the same time, try not to rework the kitchen, otherwise you will not be sure that nothing was added to your dish. In Lu Chang'an's long life, he accumulated too many useless experiences. The kitchen staff came to thank Lu Chang'an and Zhongqing one after another. Kitchen staff in high-end restaurants have many opportunities to come into contact with top-quality ingredients, but there are not many opportunities to feast on them. They usually have to eat in secret at the risk of losing their jobs. The fish was almost done, and Lu Chang'an saw Zhou Shuling belatedly appear at the corner of the bamboo forest. Then he put the fish spines on the barbecue grill and put the fish liver on the iron plate at the other end of the grill. The little train on the road is so cute. Zhou Shuling saw Lu Chang'an and said with a smile, "No wonder you said that you took Dandan and Dongdong to play last time and they liked riding the little train. You like it too, right?" Lu Chang'an saw through her thoughts at a glance. "We'll go back after eating, and we'll take the train to the subway station and then go home." Zhou Shuling twisted her body, a little embarrassed. He said it as if she liked cute little trains like a child. "Is this a fishbone?" Why is it so big? Zhou Shuling glanced at the things on the barbecue grill, a little unbelievable. Yes, the backbone of the dragonfish is the best thing. You are in a hurry. If it is later, it will be roasted and eaten by everyone. You won't have any share. Lu Chang'an pointed to the fish liver again. This it's much better than the foie gras you queue up at the cafeteria. Zhou Shuling quickly picked up 2 plates and stood obediently next to Lu Chang'an. What are you doing with 2 plates? I'll fill up 1 plate for you. Lu Chang'an knew that his little mother was actually very good at eating. Ah, I don't want so much. I'll get you 1. Come and eat when you're free. Zhou Shuling remembers that she usually cooks barbecue at home. He is always busy grilling, holding skewers in both hands. Zhou Shuling would eat a bunch herself and feed him another bunch. But there were other acquaintances outside, and Zhou Shuling was too embarrassed to feed him, so she had to leave some for him first. I'm the kind of chef who grills and eats at the same time, Lu Chang'an said with a smile, but he had no problem with Zhou Shuling holding 2 plates. At this time, Shang Guandandan, who had bulging cheeks, came over, holding a plate and looking at the fish liver, fish bones, and fish skin that had just started to be grilled under Lu Chang'an's hands without saying a word. I just grilled fish, and as expected, I waited for Dongdong's mother to come before grilling anything else. Shang Guandandan found out, and the moth really felt more sorry for her little mother. At the same time, it also proved that Shang Guandandan was wise, prodigious, and discerning. She was worthy of being her most beloved daughter-in-law. She acted in her true colors and won her favor without any fuss. This fish skin is rich in collagen and gelatin, which is very suitable for women, but it will make you feel tired if you eat too much. Later, there will be steamed and stir-fried fish heads, fish chins, fish maws and fish intestines that you can eat. Lu Chang'an picked it up casually. He ordered a piece of fish to send Shang Guandandan away, and then said to Zhou Shuling. Shang Guandandan was now controlled by the fish and couldn't open her mouth to speak. She had to eat the fish and glare at Lu Chang'an angrily. She had already eaten a lot of fish. You also need to eat fish spine, liver, and skin. I don't want to eat another piece of fish at all. I updated almost 10,000 words today, so I have all kinds of requests. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 1051. After the fish liver is fried, Lu Chang'an first feeds it to the children in the barrier, and then distributes it to everyone to taste. For those who like this food, they will not get tired of eating a few large pieces. For those who don't want to eat too greasy, you can wrap with rice or serve on slices of bread. Sister Zhou, I really envy you. Lu Chang'an cooks a lot at home. Zhongqing walked around the restaurant and came out to say hello to Zhou Shuling. She has a pretty good relationship with Zhou Shuling, especially as an unmarried woman. They both admire single mothers who raise their children alone. After all, if you put yourself in their shoes, you may find it difficult to accept such a situation and lack the courage to face it. Zongqing's words were unintentional on the part of the speaker but intentional on the part of the listener. Zhou Shuling felt that there was some ambiguity. However, it was not like Zhongqing didn't know that the relationship between Zhou Shuling and Lu Chang'an was innocent. Zhou Shuling was just a little shy. She calmed down her emotions and said softly, "It's normal. I help him cook, and only the dishes that I don't know how to cook, or the dishes that he feels he needs to show his skills to, are the ones that Chang'an cooks. I'm not good at cooking, but I usually do what I can, and I also have some guidance on housework arrangements." Shang Guandandan said that he also actively participated. He had finished eating all the fish in his mouth, and now he is slowly eating fat. Exploding cod liver, I can take the time to say a few words for myself. What she means is that she has nothing to do except stand there and point fingers. Lu Chang'an knew that Shang Guandandan always spoke in a reserved manner, and he was afraid that everyone would not understand, so he helped her explain clearly. Shang Guandandan didn't think there was any problem. For the sake of the delicious fish liver, he was willing to give some serious advice. A home is like a battlefield, with kitchens, bedrooms, living rooms, electric radiators, and sofas, all kinds of areas. There are various forces distributed, and I am too powerful to participate in the war at will, otherwise it will cause an extreme imbalance of power and a reversal of the situation, so it is my responsibility to give guidance from a high position and control the conflict in the general direction. Zhou Shuling and Zhong Qing had a little difficulty understanding Shang Guandandan's words, but Lu Chang'an nodded. He was indeed a leader born in the traditional feudal bureaucracy. He did not do anything serious and could talk nonsense for 3 days and 3 nights. Seeing that his beloved daughter-in-law and the waiting daughter-in-law were not very clear, Shang Guandandan continued to explain that the electric heating table was the core area of a family and the electric pony car was the core asset, and he paid attention to whether Lu Chang'an was there. It means to distribute the newly roasted fish liver to the Queen Mother. Lu Chang'an turned a deaf ear to Shang Guandandan's brainwashing nonsense, but Zhou Shuling and Zhong Qing stood beside him, one on the left and one on the right, very artistic. When ancient literati studied, they paid attention to sparse windows and bamboos, bright red and green bananas, burning incense in the stove, and adding fragrance to red sleeves. The atmosphere of having a barbecue here is actually 3 points more beautiful than the pomp of them pretending to study. After all, Zhongqing and Zhou Shuling both have good skin and bones. It was very difficult to find women of the same level in ancient times, especially their moist and plump figures, which were even more rare in an era when nutrition was generally lacking. Ever since Lu Chang'an gave Zhou Shuling a red sweater skirt, and she liked it so much, she began to understand the idea of dressing that suits her. However, she cherished that sweater skirt very much, so Zhou Shuling bought a similar red sweater skirt. Wear a skirt. That's what I'm wearing today. In addition to showing off her figure, she also complements the gentle and passionate aura of a woman. The slightly loose clothes around her waist are swaying, and her long hair is swaying. The amorous feelings that fall on the full part are rippling out, always reminding people of a certain movie. The popular Mrs. Joel in anime. In the rice noodle shop recently, I don't seem to see many all-stars and Michael Ming competing to eat rice noodles. Lu Chang'an looked at Zhou Shuling and became even more lovable. The two of them were very obsessed with Zhou Shuling at the beginning, and they should be even more excited now. Right. The two of them. Zhou Shuling glared at Lu Chang'an angrily. I saw in the circle of friends that they played together every day after work, made many eating videos, and ate some messy and unheard of food all day long. Thing. Lu Chang'an couldn't help but laugh. Sure enough, for men, doing interesting and fun things with friends does not seem to be so important for women. Zhongqing heard something interesting and was about to speak when he saw the table of guests who had been eating in the restaurant from afternoon to evening walked around in a circle and walked onto the lawn. After a brief pause, he walked away holding up the cell phone that was used to take the photo. Come over. Hey, this is a barbecue, fish bones, fish skin, what kind of liver is this? Such a big liver, couldn't it also be fish liver? One of them, a young man with yellow hair and wearing Balenciaga, had a round face full of smiles and bulging eyes. He looked around while talking. Yes, the chef had just chatted with them in the restaurant. He smiled and nodded. He couldn't leave the guests aside and ignore them. You don't have these on your menu, why, are you discriminating? Do you still think we can't afford it? Another man with red hair, wearing out trendy clothes and Valentino studded shoes, was not so polite, and his tone was a bit aggressive. After the two of them finished speaking, they looked around, then turned to the faces of Zhou Shuling, Zhongqing, and Shang Guandandan, looked at the positions of the three of them, and finally focused on Lu Chang'an behind the barbecue. Shang Guandandan looks young. A teenage girl, no matter how good-looking she is still an insignificant person. However, these two beauties with a familiar taste can explain the problem. Generally speaking, the most beautiful women in the scene will be surrounded by the central figure or the key man, which means that the barbecue master is now the talker. We borrowed the restaurant's kitchen and we just had some barbecue. I didn't feel that the guests couldn't afford it, nor was there any discrimination. Lu Chang'an is also a businessman. He will soon open a second rice noodle shop in partnership with Zhou Shuling, and he treats his guests very well. It is no longer as casual as when I set up a stall to make rice noodles. There is no way, maybe this is because the edges have been smoothed by reality, and I have to become mature, smooth and tolerant. This is what ordinary college students are like. Lu Chang'an put another piece of fish liver on Shang Guandandan's plate and carefully wiped her greasy mouth. The Queen Mother has special lip and tongue skills, but she always likes to stuff too much in her mouth. When you hold it in your mouth, the soup will inevitably overflow with some greasy meat water. Then give us a taste, so we can see the chef's skills, Huang Mao said with a smile. Lu Chang'an took a plate, put 2 pieces of fish, sprinkled with a few grains of sea salt, put 2 halves of small green oranges and red coral buds on the plate, placed it on a table on the lawn, and made a please gesture, and returned behind the barbecue grill. Red and Huang Mao sat down and took some beautiful photos first. Huang Mao smiled and praised the 2 pieces of grilled fish and the service of the restaurant in terms of appearance, smell, and taste. Although they were a little far apart, Lu Chang'an could still hear their voices, but he didn't expect that after Huang Mao finished praising, he messed up the plate with a knife and fork, stared at the slightly burnt edges of the grilled fish, zoomed in to take pictures, and said, "I feel that the fish meat has a fishy smell and tastes very bad." The restaurant treats customers discriminatorily and divides them into 3, 6, or 9 grades. What is this for? Lu Chang'an couldn't help but laugh. Seeing Lu Chang'an smiling, Shang Guandandan hid behind Lu Chang'an with the plate in hand to prevent blood from splattering on Shang Guandandan's plate when he killed someone, which would make her fish taste unpalatable. You can no longer say things like, "If we get splashed with blood, we won't look cute anymore." This is because Lu Chang'an thinks that the 3 views are not correct. He thinks that you have killed people, and you don't allow others to use blood to make fun of you. That's right. Isn't that too much? What do those 2 people do? Zhou Shuling sensed something was wrong. She used to work early in the morning and stay late at night to set up a breakfast stall. She had seen all kinds of customers, but these 2 people didn't look like normal customers. Maybe they were sent by colleagues. Zhong Qing was not very concerned, because this was originally Zhu Huntang's private kitchen, but Zhu Huntang didn't come here often. In order to maintain the working status and level of the staff, he opened a restaurant, Just Hu. It would be foolish for high-end restaurants in other locations to regard this place as a competitor. After Huang Mao and Hong Mao finished filming the video, they ate the 2 pieces of fish cleanly, then came over again and stood in front of the barbecue grill to look around. "The fish bones and liver look good too," Huang Mao said with a smile. "These are the fish bones and liver of the dragon. We eat them ourselves." Lu Chang'an waved his hand. "Tell me, what do you want to do?" Hong Mao played the 2 videos he had just taken, and then played a little more of the video they had taken while dining in the restaurant. Just like the video they just shot, they also made both positive and negative comments about the restaurant's products into a video. "We are actually a store explorer on Xiaohaishu. You can choose Xiaohaishu's Kohl list to see the influence list, new fans list, and new likes list. We are all among the best. Junchitan is considered a brand in the field of stores, and its traffic influence is also great," Huang Mao said in a calm tone. He has learned some language communication skills and knows that the more plainly and simply he tells awesome facts, the more credible he feels. "Ah, I have never been exposed to this kind of thing." Lu Chang'an became more experienced again and looked at Huang Mao with interest. Looking at Lu Chang'an's expression, even Hong Mao, who had always played a black-faced character, slowed down and explained, "Turning stores has greatly improved the store's business. We have done practical operations to transform a store that originally had a small reputation. It has become an internet celebrity store that is now famous in Juncha. You should know that whether you are high-end or affordable, you cannot do without the support of traffic. What is traffic? Traffic is internet celebrities, and internet celebrities are us. If you look at your store, the investment must be quite large, but the popularity is not high. What you have to do is to spread the word. You can find some amateurs to try the food, or promote experience packages, but to really achieve traffic conversion, you need the help of store explorers like us who have a fan base, Huang Mao said with a smile. Hearing this, the chef and Zhong Qing couldn't help but curl their lips slightly. Zhou Shuling was very interested. Then you originally said that you turned a store with a small reputation into a famous online store in Juncha, so which one is it? This is originally a business secret, but it doesn't matter if you reveal the name of the store. There are many, for example. Hong Mao glanced at the Bailong Center opposite Hezhu. There is a red soup spicy rooster rice noodle shop in the Bailong Center. It's the promotion we do, and you can search it online or conduct on-site inspections to see how popular it is now. Lu Chang'an and Zhou Shuling looked at each other with one sentence in their eyes. Did you invite me? Of course not. If Lu Chang'an didn't do this, Zhou Shuling would definitely be reluctant to spend the money. Giggle. Shang Guandandan, who had been hiding behind Lu Chang'an, couldn't help but laugh, and asked a little embarrassedly, if I kill them now, will I be shot? Shang Guandandan was actually very angry. The store's business was so good, and it was obvious that the Queen Mother went to check it out when she had nothing to do, and Dong Dong's mother worked so hard. It is actually nothing to ignore the Queen Mother's achievements, and Shang Guandandan doesn't want to care about it, but he still blames Dong Dong's mother's hard work on them. That is something the Queen Mother will never allow. If the method is extremely cruel, it is possible, Lu Chang'an thought for a moment. Nowadays, even if he kills someone intentionally, he may not be sentenced to death. But when Shang Guandandan kills someone, he often sucks people dry into bones, or uses her, Herod transforms into an evil creature and eats people. The method should be considered extremely cruel, the plot is extremely bad, and the social impact is serious. Then after I'm shot, you'll put me in that kind of furnace and burn me. Of course, that's called cremation. That kind of stove must have burned a lot of people. I don't want to lie on it and get burned, Shang Guandandan thought for a moment, feeling that he would be unlovable after being burned. He was so dirty and disgusting that he decided not to do it. You go ahead and kill me. Then I won't mind you being burned, but I have to be cute. I can't lie down where people are burned. Mother never dislikes moths. Many moths fell into the manure pit, and their mother would lift them up and put them under the faucet to give them a bath. The kind of water pipe that he had played with just now would be enough. Shang Guandandan continued to eat cod liver while imagining the scene of feeding Lu Chang'an with a water pipe. Lu Chang'an thought that she would do something to save him a lot of trouble, but in the end, she only entertained him, so he had to give her a blank look. What's more, it's just a scam at most, so killing people is still a bit too cruel, and Lu Chang'an can't bear it. What are you talking about? Do you know how to respect people? We are talking business with you. Talking business, Hong Mao reminded Lu Chang'an cautiously. No, we don't need it. Lu Chang'an looked back at Zhong Qing and the chef to confirm that the restaurant did not have such a need. No need? Then we have to send a negative review. Realistically, Huang Mao stopped laughing and played the video of the negative review to Lu Chang'an. If you want to eliminate the impact by then, you only need to pay 5. A marketing fee of 10,000 yuan is enough. 50,000 yuan, Zhou Shuling was calm when she heard this number. This is not about selling 10,000 lard fried eggs. When Lu Chang'an heard this number, he had no choice but to turn around and say a few words to Shang Guandandan. There are some things that we don't say, but you know how to do them. To be an internet celebrity, you also need to have charisma. The most important thing for us is authenticity. Our brothers have many fans, which means they have strong charisma and are flesh and blood. Have emotions, opinions, positions, attitudes, and values. Even if you post videos and posts that slander us now, it will not prevent our fans from liking us. Doing so will only bring more disparity to you. Comment. I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. Just 3 months ago, we ate some disgusting food in a hot pot restaurant in Hexie. The store refused to compromise. After we sent out the store visit notes, the business plummeted and the boss suffered from high blood pressure. When he was hospitalized, his partner took the opportunity to live in his house, slept with his wife on the pretext of providing money to help him survive, and later took away the store. Hung Mao said with a sneer. Look, it's obviously a matter of 50,000 yuan, spend 50,000 yuan on marketing, or spend 50,000 yuan to eliminate the impact afterwards. Smart people know how to choose, right? Huang Mao said with a smile. Take a photo with your phone, Lu Chang'an said to Zhong Qing. Huang Mao and Hong Mao looked at each other and burst into laughter. They had finished saying what they needed to say. What could they capture if they picked up their phones and took another photo? Anyway, they would not be stupid enough to say what they just said in front of the camera. If you are willing to put your hands on the barbecue grill for a while, I will consider cooperating with you. Lu Chang'an brushed another layer of oil on the shelf, and there was a sizzling sound of oil popping, and the charcoal fire underneath burned even more vigorously. Are you kidding us? As soon as Huang Mao finished speaking, he saw that his partner Hong Mao was so angry that he raised his hands in the air without hesitation, and then bravely pressed down on the red-hot barbecue grill. After letting out a scream, he still refused to move his hands. Huang Mao was stunned, and at the same time he felt as if several steel wires were drilled into his body. These steel wires grew in his limbs, making him a puppet unable to control his body. Under the control of those steel wires, his pupils dilated in fear, his mouth was wide open, his heart was about to jump out of his chest nervously, and he looked at his hands firmly pressing on the barbecue grill, and he was also screaming again and again. The burning pain from their palms made them grin, their eyes cracked, and the corners of their eyes burst open and bleed, but they could not move their palms away no matter what. Several kitchen staff were startled. Although they knew they were not good people, they saw the scene and smelled the smell of burnt flesh and hurriedly pulled the two away. The two people raised their hands high, and when they saw the burned flesh on their palms, they felt extremely painful and screamed for someone to call 120. Wait a minute, Lu Chang'an quickly called them. Don't worry, stretch out your palm and have a look. I'm an expert in this area. Hung Mao and Huang Mao were stunned for a moment, but the endless pain left them no time to think. When they heard that he was an expert, they stretched out their hands to seek medical treatment. Lu Chang'an grabbed a handful of cumin and chopped green onion and sprinkled it on. When grilling all kinds of claws, cumin and chopped green onion must be added. Remember, I will tell you a little barbecue tip every day. I remember you. Hung Mao and Huang Mao screamed twice, not caring about waiting for the ambulance, and rushed to the roadside to go to the infirmary for treatment first. Isn't this some new porcelain touching technique? Lu Chang'an turned around and asked the others with some confusion. After they have taken care of the wounds, they will come back and demand compensation for physical damage, mental damage, and lost work time. What? It's very possible, Shang Guandandan immediately responded loudly to show that he had nothing to do with what happened just now and to get rid of suspicion. At the same time, he wiped some of his hair. It's not serious, but it's nothing. I took a video and they pressed it up themselves. Zhong Qing always felt that Lu Chang'an did this, but there was no evidence and he couldn't be sure. After the fish spine was roasted, Lu Chang'an first took a piece of it and gave it to Shang Guandandan to express his condolences to the Queen Mother for her hard work. Although Yudao can defeat all kinds of magic with one force, in daily life, everyone still learns some magic tricks like Shang Guandandan. Solve various small problems in life more quickly and conveniently. Hello everyone, I changed my pen name to, all kinds of requests. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ryu Siahua. Chapter 1052. Lu Chang'an distributed the grilled fish spines to everyone, and then put the grilled fish skin on the iron plate to fry and brush the ingredients. The next step is to go to the restaurant to eat the steamed and stir-fried parts. The fish neck parts placed in the oven are also crispy. Zhou Dongdong and Shang Guandandan walked into the restaurant slowly gnawing on the fish spine, while Zhou Shuling, under Lu Chang'an's guidance, tasted the sweet marrow juice in the fish spine. Stir-fried fish maw and fish intestines, steamed fish heads, fish tails and shark fins for soup, etc. Eat more than one fish, it is a feast for the gluttonous people. On such an occasion, of course, a bowl of fragrant white rice noodles is indispensable. Eating vegetables without eating means not eating at all. After dinner in the restaurant, Lu Chang'an handed Lu Sin to Zhongqing and asked her to take him for a ride. After crossing the Zhezhu Bridge, he dropped Lu Sin anywhere and he would know where he was going. He took Zhou Shuling to take a small train, and Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong sat on the train. Sitting on the small train, Shang Guandandan, who had never seen a real train, pretended to hold the steering wheel and imitate driving a train. Zhou Dongdong said "Oh" when Shang Guandandan stomped his feet and stepped on the accelerator. Called twice to indicate that the train is accelerating. Zhou Shuling was not like the two of them, she just sat obediently and docilely next to Lu Chang'an, with an expression of excitement and satisfaction on her face. When Shang Guandandan took the cable car for the first time, Lu Chang'an laughed at her, but he did not laugh at Zhou Shuling. Many people who have had average or even difficult living conditions since childhood often have some trivial wishes hidden in their hearts until they grow up. These wishes are often ordinary, even so ordinary that many people cannot understand them. Can this be considered a wish? Some people have never taken a train. Some people want to be rewarded by eating KFC if they work hard and do well in the exam. Some people only walk into a movie theater when they go on a blind date for the first time. Some of them went to the amusement park with their parents when they were 19 years old. They got up at about 5 o'clock in excitement and ran around the Bailong Center 10 times. Zhongqing did not drop Lu Sin down directly on the roadside, but drove the car into the underground parking lot of Building 2. Currently, Building 2 has not attracted investment, and only Sumei is using the entire building. In the huge parking lot, the park was full of accompanying vehicles, including Hunky Motorsport, Rolls-Royce Motorsport, Maybach Pullman Motorsport, etc. Zonking's Maserati Quattroporte was inconspicuous. But she was able to park her car as close as possible to Sumei's car. Zhongqing took Lu Sin upstairs and went to the conference room. The think tank forum held in Juncha lasted for 3 days, and today was the second day. However, Sumei did not go to the scene like yesterday, but participated in the meeting remotely. The meeting had just ended at this point. Zhongqing walked into the conference room and saw Sumei leaning lazily on the seat, her legs intertwined, and her soft skirt was extremely silky, falling from her smoother and softer skin, revealing the leg muscles almost to the root. The iron cage next to it has been opened, and a dead lamb is lying inside. It looks exhausted, its eyes are distracted, its limbs are limp and lifeless, its lips are trembling slightly, and there is some hair on the originally pink and tender lips. White, as weak as after gastric lavage due to poisoning. It was still wearing the nightmare armor, but at this moment it completely lacked the majesty of the nightmare armor. "Third Miss, are you okay?" Zhongqing didn't bother to say hello to Sumei. He was so frightened that he rushed forward and knelt in front of the iron cage, trying to save the lamb. "It's fine." Sumei didn't even want to look at it. She just forced it to listen to the lecture at the conference all night. The result was as if Sumei had been abusing it to the point of dying, resisting learning to an incredible degree. These people are speaking in foreign languages, it's like chanting a curse, it makes my ears hurt. And, and the information they posted, none of it is of the cartoon type. I can't understand it at all, and I don't want to see it. The lamb was still lying in the cage, refusing to even come out. Leave me alone, I'm going to die here. Lusin came over, went around the cage twice, stretched his head in and smelled the lamb, and then stepped back. If he wanted to get into this cage, he would have to sit on the lamb, but this little one, the sheep, often come to play under the sycamore tree, and Lusin always feels like he is being suppressed by the sheep. Now that he sees the dead sheep, he doesn't want to bully it. High Templar, do you still remember your former name, the eminent monk of Puchuo Temple? Xiao Yang asked with great sadness. You, which generation, what generation of High Templar are you? Up. The third generation. Zhongqing took 2 steps back and answered. Seeing that the lamb was still in the mood to ask such a question, he knew that it just had a mental problem and was in good health. What about the first 2 generations? Have they happily returned to nature, running and playing freely? The little sheep looked out of the iron cage crazily. Less than 3 meters away, there was a huge floor-to-ceiling window, where you could see the sand. The night view, the air you can breathe freely. Been eaten by Lu Chang'an, Zhongqing replied. Xiao Yang was stunned. It turned out that instead of freedom outside the window, it was just Lu Chang'an's dog butcher knife and hot pot. Why did you bring the dog? This dog originally belonged to Zhu Huntang and was later given to Lu Chang'an. Su Mei looked at Lusin carefully. Of course she knew that Lu Chang'an had such a dog, but this was the first time she paid attention to it. There are all kinds of creatures around Lu Chang'an. A dog is naturally not worthy of Su Mei's attention, but looking at it now, this dog seems to be a little bit more outstanding and more humane than ordinary dogs. Zhongqing then told the story about how Zhu Huntang's dog bit a man named Wu Fan last year. Then he felt that her dog was a threat to bite people, so he hoped that it would bite Lu Chang'an, so he gave it to him. Is this dog a female? Yes. Su Mei frowned. He even raised a female dog. There are too many female creatures around him. I treated him to grilled fish today, and he brought his dog. I tried it out, but he didn't answer directly, but it really has nothing to do with that person, Zhongqing went on to report. That's good. Su Mei did not ask Zhongqing in detail how he determined it. Since she sent Zhongqing to do this, she naturally had to trust Zhongqing's analysis and judgment and the results he gave. Zhongqing then relayed Lu Chang'an's words about not caring about what happened back then for Zhu Huntang's sake. The corners of Su Mei's soft mouth were slightly raised, and there was a hint of smile, like the gentle spring breeze blowing over, making the ashes accumulated in the heart and the scars that gradually settled over the years have been erased. The beauty's face is like the first cascading begonia blooming in the warm spring wind and drizzle, breathing in the smell of fresh earth, giving people a wonderful feeling of getting rid of the old and welcoming the new. That's good. Su Mei repeated these 3 words. Although she had already felt that he was relenting when she was in Antarctica, and letting her return to Juncha was actually a change in attitude, but after all, it was not as good as him saying it in person. Put her mind at ease. Su Mei turned around, with the chair facing away from the iron cage behind her, and raised her hand to gently press the corners of her eyes. The pads of his fingers were a little moist, and he pressed his eyebrows, rubbing the little tears that had oozed out into the skin that was still soft and tender after 100 years. It's been so many years. It turns out that I have been concerned about this matter for over 100 years. It turned out that this was how he felt after he spoke. It's just, she and he can't go back to the past, right? He seemed to still be the romantic young man, but she was no longer the girl who confidently asked him to dote on her alone. You have already achieved the ageless appearance that countless women have dreamed of throughout the ages, and yet you still dream of remaining a girl forever? Is it too greedy? It will always be the girl in his arms. Now it is someone else's turn to have such a sweet dream. Are you plotting behind my back to torture this bleat me? The lamb remained in a dying and paralyzed state, wagging its tail and slapping the iron cage to make some noise, reminding them that it was just pretending to be dead, and it wasn't really dead. Sume bit her lip, she was so funny and angry. She was beaten and scolded, and she even used methods such as being locked in an iron cage and listening to lectures that would never be used in ordinary families, but it still had no effect. It's really because his children don't take their parents seriously. Thinking about it, he and Lu Chang'an are two people who stand at the pinnacle of the biological world, but there is nothing they can do with such a little lamb pretending to be dead. I'm alive. If you have any conspiracy, you'd better say it out loud. How scared will I be? The little sheep continued to talk lazily, and he was already lying down. It's none of your business. Sume adjusted her mood and frowned at the tired lamb. It's none of my business. Zhongqing just said that he has nothing to do with that person, which means that Zhongqing just went to investigate the relationship between that person and Lu Chang'an. If he thinks about it carefully, he has a relationship with Lu Chang'an, and Zhongqing needs to come out for an interview in person. At the same time, it is very likely that the person who made you want to investigate today, oh, you went to investigate my traditional culture teacher, Professor Lu Yuang. Lu Xiaoyang kicked the edge of the cage, wanting to laugh a little. But you can't laugh, it just needs to maintain this posture of being hopeless, letting the mother know that the damage she has done to the lamb is irreparable, and I hope she can consider letting those who participated in the think tank forum at least make a cartoon video explanation, otherwise there would be such boring people in this world who would listen to them beeping. What it wants to laugh at is, what can Zhongqing find out through investigation? Zhongqing is Lu Chang'an's little vixen. She has eaten tiger whip for a long time. She is a woman who knows how to fake the power of a tiger. Have you never heard of the idiom of doing accounts for the tiger? To popularize the science, the idiom doing the accounting for the tiger refers to a woman who has already faked the power of the tiger and will help the tiger settle the accounts when doing things. How to do it and how to say it is more beneficial to him. Even if it was Sume's order, Zhongqing had no intention of disobeying it, but he would still subconsciously remind and hint in favor of Lu Chang'an. Zhongqing may be rational and witty in other matters, but asking her to investigate matters related to Lu Chang'an would be a fool to send her. What do you have to say? Sume wanted to hear Zhu Huntang's opinion. After all, Zhu Huntang and Lu Yuang were also familiar with each other. Sume couldn't help but frown again. How come this little lamb kebab has a good relationship with the women Lu Chang'an knows? Which side is she from? According to normal development, if the master has several wives, the children of these women will generally not have a good look towards other concubines, let alone have a close relationship, unless there is alliance and cooperation with related interests. I have had more contact with Professor Lu recently, and I have gradually developed some reasonable suspicions. After Xiaoyang finished speaking, he turned his head to look at his mother's expression, but refused to say it directly. My mother is the ruthless leader of the evil forces in the world. People with this status and background can usually cross the river and get off the bridge easily, so I have to get some benefits first and let the benefits fall into my pocket before I can tell her my story. The crystallization of wisdom and the results of analysis. Say it, Sume urged. Unless you find a way to get my dad to wear the nightmare armor and me, I won't tell you. Xiaoyang was helpless. Sume glanced at the so-called nightmare armor on the lamb. She didn't know why the lamb felt so majestic. When it was worn on it, it looked like a sheep-headed pangolin. Will Lu Chang'an wear this thing? But, he even wore a sheep costume. But would he be willing to become a sheep? This nightmare armor can only be worn by turning into a sheep, right? Lu Chang'an turned into a sheep when he was at Nanshan Ranch. Zhongqing said to Sume in a low voice. Who are you guarding against in such a low voice? Qing, since my mother returned to Junsha, you no longer take me seriously, Xiaoyang said, dissatisfied. I definitely didn't mean that. Zhongqing sighed and firmly denied it. The little sheep didn't really think so, he just looked at his mother who seemed to be thinking about it. Okay, it's been a long time since Sume tried to be coquettish to Lu Chang'an and let him do such a ridiculous thing. It was just right, to deal with the emotional adjustment incident at that time and test his threshold in some aspects. I extremely doubt that An Nuan and Lu Yuang are the same person. Xiao Yang then kicked the iron cage and moved his body over. Hey! Didn't expect it? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 1053. Su Mei has not come into contact with people who like to exaggerate. Some people want to get Su Mei's attention. They say, I have a cross-generational project in hand, my product can change the world, and so on, are the lowest level. Others are like Zhu Huntang, who first points out a subversive conclusion to attract others' attention and curiosity, and then rambles on. In the end, you will find that what he said has nothing to do with what he said at the beginning. Someone once tried every means and handed Su Mei a plan called The Atlantic is Crying. The name sounds related to climate change, environmental protection, marine life, and geographical research projects. It is full of a sense of compassion and deep thinking about man and nature. In fact, this person's idea is to make the warm and humid air currents from the Atlantic Ocean more abundant, accumulate them south of the Tian Shan Mountains, and create 100 Salamu lakes in the Taklamakan Desert. The warm and humid air from the Atlantic Ocean comes all the way, and when it encounters the Tian Shan Mountains, it is unable to climb over it. The Salamu Lake formed by being intercepted by the Tian Shan Mountains is praised as the last tier of the Atlantic Ocean. Then 100 Salamu lakes are 100 tiers, so there seems to be no problem in naming this project The Atlantic is Crying. At first glance, this plan seemed interesting, but the key was how to execute it. The other party proposed an execution plan that was extremely surprising. From the Atlantic Ocean to the Tian Shan Mountains, countless huge fans were set up along the way to accelerate the warm and humid airflow in the Atlantic Ocean. If Wang Duyu meets this person, he won't have to worry about how to spend $1 billion. Su Mei felt that what Zhu Huntang was talking about was similar to this person. It had an eye-catching beginning and a joke that ended in vain. You were inspired by the fact that Lu Chang'an and Lu Jianxi are the same person, right? But the problem is, we all know that they are the same person, so we have never seen Lu Chang'an and Lu Jianxi appear at the same time. So what about An Nuan and Professor Lu? You don't want to tell me, you have never seen them appear at the same time, Su Mei said angrily. Su Mei always felt that something was wrong with Lu Yuang, but she did not think in such a ridiculous direction. She knew very well that An Nuan was born from Lu Yuang's belly. It was impossible for An Nuan to be a person and give birth to herself. Are you really the third young lady? Are you pretending to be her little lamb? Zhongqing asked suspiciously. Because Zhu Huntang usually likes to talk nonsense, but it is by no means unreasonable nonsense, and can often be logically justified. But how can this kind of nonsense be justified if An Nuan and Lu Yuang are the same person? Pu, Xiao Yang spat at Zhongqing. Zhongqing was relieved, because the only ones who could spit like this were Zhu Huntang and her alpaca Long Aotian. Since the person in front of him was not Long Aotian with flowing hair and presidential look, it was Zhu Huntang's transformed lamb. Not the pet lamb that likes to be roasted in the fire and has its ear hair burnt. What exactly do you want to say? Su Mei knew it was nonsense, but she was also a little concerned about whether it could provide new ideas or inspiration. The most important thing is that after listening to its nonsense, you can teach it a lesson. Su Mei got angry when she saw its tired look. The proud and show-off expression on the sheep's face was vivid. How could she be so angry? A lamb kebab. To express your opinions, you have to do it from a high place. Let's lift the cage to the conference table first. The floor is cold, and the little hooves of Meme are also getting cold. The lamb turned over and raised himself up to the sky. Limbs, Mom, do you think my soft little sheep's hooves are cute? Daddy likes my little sheep's hooves the most. He often holds them in his hands and plays with them, and he can't help praising me for how cute they are. Are you dreaming? Sumei didn't believe it at all. Lu Chang'an often had mood swings when he saw it like this, and his mentality was easily out of control. He also liked its little sheep's hooves the most. The iron cage has a thick floor, and it is not in direct contact with the floor. How could the little hooves get cold? Just seeing that it really had an idea, Sumei still snapped her fingers. A man in black walked in, and Sumei pointed to the iron cage. The man in black grabbed the thick steel pipes on both sides of the iron cage and picked it up. His biceps and chest muscles bulged under his straight shirt, and he placed the iron cage on the conference table. The tabletop sank slightly, and the man in black retreated. "Miss Third, why have you been staying in the cage? Come out quickly," Zhongqing asked puzzledly. The cage door had already been opened. This is a gesture of resistance. No biological mother would lock her baby in a cage. In other families, stepmothers are the ones who are not good to their children. In our family, the biological mother is the most ruthless, and all other stepmothers will protect them. But, the lamb was so angry that he stamped his feet, making a tuk-tuk sound when his hooves hit the bottom of the cage. "Didn't you get in there by yourself? I fell into a trap." Who would guard against his own mother? Thinking about it, he became even more angry. The old man was the same, he only knew how to take advantage of Bimi's trust. The little sheep still remembered that the old man made a cross, then it leaned on it and asked him to tie it up, and then he threw it into the sky, and the sheep flew away. "Let you sit in on the meeting and improve yourself. I'll try my best." "Is it easy for me?" Sumei pointed at it. "Doesn't it understand? My own mother bleated for the sake of her own good. On the surface, those other women made you feel like a spring breeze, but behind their backs, weren't they thinking about your father's nourishment? Anyway, I won't come out. When Daddy doesn't see me for a long time, he will miss me and come to me to find me in a cage. He must feel sorry for me. I will just lie in his arms and bleat and scream. Shed tears sadly that would turn into pearls and roll around like pearls when dropped on the ground." The lamb was determined and decided to fight to the end. This is also a long-term strategy. If you can't wait to run out when you see the iron cage door, your mother will feel that the iron cage banning technique is very effective, and she will use it next time. On the contrary, she found that Xiao Yang didn't care how long she was imprisoned, so she would not use such tricks again. Sumei gritted her teeth a little. She knew very well that even though Lu Chang'an beat Zhu Huntang at every turn and cried, it was too dangerous for him to take care of his children. If someone else really tortured Zhu Huntang, I'm afraid it would be her. "Mom, he still has some emotions in his heart." "Forget it, let it stay in if it wants to. Anyway, she has a way to get it in, and a way to get it out again. How can a mother not be good at taking care of her children?" "Okay, whatever you want. Now can you tell me why An Nuan and Lu Yuang are the same person?" Sumei sat on the chair leisurely and moved to the opposite side of it. Xiao Yang looked at Zhongqing, whose wisdom and knowledge were not as good as his own, and his mother, whose vision and spirit were not as good as his own. He held his head high and said, "Since I learned how to transform, my perspective and feeling about the world have been very different." Sheep eyes looked down upon others. The little sheep didn't take his mother's sarcastic words seriously and continued, "As we all know, it is a wrong idiom to look down on people with sheep's eyes. The correct saying is that people look down on people with dog's eyes. Because I am a special kind of me, I will not be used as an example. Let's see Lusin, dogs look down on people. This sentence refers to people with dog eyes. The world in dog's eyes is actually different from what human eyes see." Unexpectedly, when he also corrected other people's idiom usage, the little sheep walked proudly in the iron cage. Su Mei just looked at it suspiciously, and then glanced at Lu Sin, who was squatting on the ground obediently. Lu Sin did not lose his memory. Zhu Huntang was the previous owner, and Zhong Qing was also the one who often walked him. Later he often came here to play. There was a dog named Gate Master who was still his friend, so he stayed here without getting anxious or eager to go back. That is to say, the world we see with our eyes is captured by a camera and becomes a photo, and then we use some kind of camera connected to the dog's brain to turn the world seen by the dog's eyes into a photo and print it out. We will find that they are two completely different photos. After Xiao Yang finished speaking, his wise eyes scanned the two people in front of him. But, that's just a different photo, not a different world. The world is still the same world. Zhong Qing somewhat understood what Xiao Yang meant. Su Mei glanced deeply at the little sheep, but said nothing. Yes, En Nuan and Lu Yuang are different in our eyes, just like one world expressed in two images. In essence, they are the same person, they are just our senses to see the world and the channels to understand the world. The rules that restrict us from having a deeper understanding of the world are all deceiving us. These are two people. The little sheep's eyes fell on her mother. Although she couldn't dig holes, she could still be regarded as an intellectual, and it seemed that she was better than Zhong Qing. The little vixen who only knows how to do accounts for tigers should be smarter. Then how did you break through this limitation, not be deceived, and discover the truth? Su Mei asked back. This little mutton skewer is basically illiterate, how can it think about such a problem? Although Zhuangzhou began to doubt the authenticity of the world 2,300 years ago, most people believed that it was just a confused emotion rather than thinking and analysis after discovering evidence based on real events. Like what Xiao Yang just talked about, it is more like that. After the rapid development of modern physics, many real-life experimental discoveries and theories have made people start to think about whether the world is real or virtual. Because a while ago, the bad old man tried to torture me and started to teach me about quantum mechanics. He also said that this world is virtual. When we run the virtual world infinitely close to reality, we will completely understand the problems of quantum mechanics. Xiao Yang sighed softly. I have done some research on quantum mechanics now, so I will think about the problem from this perspective. The last few pages of chapter 1004. You have also done some research on quantum mechanics. The corners of Su Mei's eyes twitched several times before she suppressed her heartfelt laughter and desire to ridicule. After my thinking, I found that this world is indeed a man-made universe, and the old man is the manager of the universe. Before I grew up, he carried out the will of the universe on my behalf, so this world will appear now. Some features of the virtual world, such as NPCs like Lu Yuang, that give people a buggy feeling. The little sheep stepped on its hooves. I hope from now on, Mother, you will give me, the future controller of the universe, some respect. When I take back the authority of the administrator from the old man, I will become the leader of the 9 provinces Fenglai sword section. After becoming the master of the sect, I will let you become a twin being like Lu Yuang and An Nuan, so that you can experience more in your love with the bad old man. Before the little sheep finished speaking, Su Mei pinched the sheep's mouth. Su Mei's cheeks were so red that they were about to bleed, and no human words came out of the sheep's mouth. Please give me a vote. It's really hard on my brain to help me think about all this nonsense and try to come up with 12,345 lines all day long. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 1054. The lamb stretched out its 2 hooves and hugged its mother's hand, getting rid of her control, and then jumped in the iron cage without saying anything else. After all, everyone's understanding of the world, wisdom, and role in the world are not on the same level. It's quite a waste of time to communicate with them. Xiao Yang doesn't want to lower himself to the same level as them, and then use them to be able to state the problem in an understandable way. It's a bit confusing. Here in mainland China, junior high schools are exposed to the wave-particle duality of light. An object is both a wave and a particle, and what state it is in depends on your observation. This is Zhejun what Tang means, whether that person is an Nuan or Lu Yuang, depends on our observation. Su Mei simply explained to Zhongqing. Ah, I am indeed a genius. Have my discoveries been published in textbooks? Then why does Yan Qingcheng always give me tutoring lessons for 7th grade? You really don't take me seriously, Xiao Yang sneered. I have an opinion on Yan Qingcheng. It seems that the high opinion I just expressed is basically academician level. I don't know how confident I am to apply for academician selection. As for the bleeding universe it talks about, you can understand that it thinks we live in a virtual world. It's easy to understand if a person is both Lu Yuang and an Nuan. The virtual world created in the underground base in the world, matter can be a wave function or a certain value. Su Mei took out a laptop from the drawer of the conference table, opened it, and tapped on the keyboard casually. We found a new map in a game similar to a virtual world. Before we entered the new map, it just like the wave-particle duality of light, its state cannot be determined, but after we enter, this new map is immediately created according to the rules behind the virtual world. If the world we currently exist also has such rules, then whether the world exists or not depends on whether we are observing. Isn't it interesting? Zhongqing frowned, but Su Mei's explanation was quite easy to understand. After all, modern people's experience of playing online games can help everyone understand some phenomena in quantum mechanics that are unacceptable in reality. Those scientists at the time had just discovered those phenomena and had never played online games before, so they were probably very frightened. What are you talking about? Are you talking about the truth about the universe that I discovered? Why are you talking about my theory, but I don't know what you are talking about? Do you want to package my theory? Go and win the Nobel Prize or something, and then become the head of the 9 provinces Fenglai sword sect. Xiao Yang looked at her mother suspiciously. After all, after becoming the sect leader of the Zhuzhu Fenglai sword sect, you can control the entire universe. My mother is the head of the evil forces in the world. Generally, such a person would not be willing to submit to me. He wants to be the sect leader himself and turn the bad old man into a sect leader. Her special utensils are also possible. Su Mei's main research direction is not quantum physics, but she was aroused by Xiao Yang to talk about it. She turned a deaf ear to its doubts and just typed on the keyboard. Look at this keyboard, does it look like the periodic table of elements? In this world is the sequence of basic compositions like a keyboard combination. We use the keyboard to input various rules to create a virtual world, just like someone uses the rules of combining elements to create what we call the real world. Zhongqing understood what Su Mei meant, and then laughed dumbly. I didn't expect that you will be discussing such profound issues with us today. Listen to her nonsense and let's chat by the way. I hope she can understand the truth. If she always thinks that she has unprecedented discoveries and ideas, it must be because she has not read enough books and has too little experience. Su Mei pressed the button. With his soft waist, he walked out of the conference room without looking back. Bah! You go, I will always be waiting in the iron cage for Daddy to rescue his colorful glazed pure white fairyland princess Baa. Zhongqing quickly led the dog to follow him, walked out of the conference room and asked in a low voice, Miss Third is still in the cage, what should I do if she really doesn't want to come out? It's very simple. She will come out later. You should send the dog away first, lest Lu Chang'an think that I held his dog because I wanted him to come to me. Su Mei pointed at Lu Xin. It was all in vain. Zhongqing nodded, sighing in his heart, you are so arrogant, don't you want him to come to you? Arriving at the end of the train, very close to the subway station, the 4 of them walked there. Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong were running and jumping hand in hand. Lu Chang'an and Zhou Shuling were walking side by side behind them, looking at the 2 in front with slightly raised corners of their mouths. This was Shang Guandandan's first time taking the subway. In the past, when traveling far away, he would be picked up by his daughters-in-law and goddaughters in luxury cars, or Lu Chang'an would ride an electric car with him, or he would lie on Lu Chang'an's back. He has never taken this ride before. A convenient means of transportation. Why doesn't this little TV have buttons? Shang Guandandan announced loudly that she had discovered an unreasonable phenomenon after circling a subway self-service ticket machine. Zhou Shuling was buying her a subway ticket and explained, "It's like your self-service vending machine. Things come out when you pay, not a small TV." A coin dropped from the ticket vending machine, and Zhou Shuling handed it to her. "Then let's take one back and put it at the gate of the community. From now on, when everyone takes the subway, they can go to my self-service ticket vending machine to buy tickets first." Shang Guandandan looked at the crowds of people in the subway and suddenly felt that this was a career with a lot of money. Business, eager to try the self-service ticket machine. It was a bit heavy, and the Queen Mother was not strong enough to hold it now. Shang Guandandan looked around and carefully suppressed his intention to not expose it. "You can just go and rob the bank." After Lu Chang'an thought for a moment, he seriously gave her an idea that would make more money. "Anyway, you are very capable. Don't you agree?" Shang Guandandan put his hands on his hips and glared at Lu Chang'an angrily. He was discriminating and prejudiced. He did not see that her self-service vending machine was so successful. This self-service ticket vending machine must also make the Queen Mother a lot of money. He must be afraid that if she succeeds in her career and has more and more say in the family, she will become Shang Guandandan and give him 80 yuan of pocket money every day. Except for Zhu Huntang, even Qin Yanan will not agree with you. Among the remaining people, Lu Chang'an rigorously excluded Zhu Huntang and said with certainty. Shang Guandandan quickly glanced at Zhou Shuling, who nodded imperceptibly. Shang Guandandan frowned. Only Xiao Tang would agree. That was probably not very reliable. "I won't rob a bank," Shang Guandandan said after thinking for a while. Lu Chang'an sighed. If he had known better, he would have let her target the self-service ticket vending machine. Zhou Shuling took Shang Guandandan's hand and went to the turnstile to teach her how to swipe coin-type subway tickets. Zhou Dongdong stood on the red fireproof box, stretched out his hand and gestured towards the standard line for children's free tickets on the subway next to him to show that he was a child who needed to buy a ticket. He was ruthlessly taken down by Lu Chang'an, revealing his true form, and then he held his hand through the turnstile. Metro Line 2 runs through Juncha from east to west and crosses the Xiangjiang River at the bottom of the river. The subway track at Zhezhou Metro Station is very deep. It is located 13 floors underground in the center of the river. Every time you take Line 2 to cross the Xiangjiang River, you think about the top of your head. Nearly 40 meters away is the surging river heading north to Dongting, which is quite amazing. "Lu Chang'an, can you punch us through the top of our heads and let the river flow down?" Shang Guandandan heard that this was nearly 40 meters under the water, so he walked towards the front of the platform and asked curiously. "Please don't ask these questions that are suspected of being terrorists." Lu Chang'an refused to answer. "Things like this that will cause civilian casualties can be classified as terrorist actions, and if it is just a male gunner who is equal to A, then it is called violent politics at best. It belongs to other countries' internal affairs, so there is no need to be sentimental and have any empathy. That means you can't. In order to maintain your character as an ordinary college student, your strength is relatively average. You can't even lift one of Xiaotang's 2 buildings with one hand." Shang Guandandan is also very weak. Not only can he not be able to lift the building, can't even pick up a kitchen knife, and can only wave a plastic kitchen knife with a bang a few times a day to show that he is actually interested in doing some housework in the kitchen. Lu Chang'an is a strong man. He is very strong. Zhou Shuling reached out and touched Lu Chang'an's arm, and said with some envy. She used to wish that she was a strong man, so that she could push more and sell it earlier, and she could also work on the construction site. "How do you know he is very strong? Did he do something to you that made you feel very strong?" Shang Guandandan opened his mouth slightly and said calmly to avoid others discovering that the majestic and elegant Queen Mother was actually talking. Astringent. Lu Chang'an found out, raised his hand and hit her on the head, causing her neck to shrink, and then Zhou Shuling pulled her over and held her in his arms to protect her. You know how to hit people. Usually when I see you working, I just feel that you are very strong. Last time you helped me loosen the soil and dig the land. You dug very deep and dug out a large piece of soil. Zhou Shuling touched Shang Guandan. Dan's hair said. Shang Guandandan couldn't help but giggle, and Lu Chang'an had no choice but to give her a blank look. Zhou Shuling obviously spoke seriously, but seeing her smile would easily make people think about ambiguous things. I want to be a strongman too. Zhou Dongdong squatted on the ground and stood up again, raising his hands in the air like a weightlifter. Then how can I become a strong man? Lu Chang'an asked. Eat a lot of food. Then what will you do after you become a strongman? Eat more food. You are worthy of having ideals and a bright future, Lu Chang'an praised, and then glanced at Zhou Shuling. Zhou Shuling was a little embarrassed, so she had to give Zhou Dongdong a slap. Couldn't this child be an ideal strong man like her mother? I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 1055. The lamb lay bored in the iron cage. It was really not fun to stay for a long time, but it was ready to go to bed later, so the night passed quickly. After a while, the lamb heard his mother's footsteps, his ears moved, and then he saw his mother standing at the door of the conference room looking at it. The lamb quickly got up and came to the door of the iron cage. While sticking one hoof out of the door, he glanced sideways at his mother. As soon as Su Mei walked in, the lamb retracted its hooves and hid inside. Su Mei walked back to the door and still stood there looking at it. The little sheep repeated its old trick, stretched out its hooves, and observed Su Mei's expression. Seeing her frown, the little sheep tentatively got out of the iron cage, ran around the conference table, and then he rushed back into the iron cage extremely quickly and shouted, "Hey!" Su Mei gritted her teeth. Its hobby of seeking death must have been cultivated after following Lu Chang'an. You must know that even though it was naughty before, it was still relatively honest when Su Mei taught it a lesson, and would never provoke Su Mei like this. Maybe it was afraid of Su Mei in the past, thinking that Su Mei was a ruthless, and cruel leader of evil forces. Now it probably realized that Su Mei was even more afraid of Lu Chang'an, and she was Lu Chang'an's beloved daughter, so he looked down on Su Mei even more. Su Mei snapped her fingers, and two men in black pushed a small trailer in and put the strong and stable large iron cage on the small trailer. "Hey!" Xiao Yang yelled, a little wary, but he didn't take these men in black seriously. Their combat power was basically the same as that of the bread men, and they were all guys that Lu Chang'an could kill in 0.2 seconds. Two men in black pushed a small trailer to the helipad on the roof of Building 2, where there was already a domestic helicopter based on the A313A platform. Because Xiao Yang likes helicopters and often buys helicopters, he is relatively familiar with helicopters. The helicopter platform in front of him originally used a Canadian engine. Later, the US imposed sanctions and cut off the supply, and a new and more powerful engine was developed domestically. The overall performance even surpasses the engine that has been discontinued in Canada. Although it is still not as good as Xiao Yang's helicopter flagship, it is not bad. Su Mei is relatively low-key now, and does not have a whole helicopter fleet like Xiao Yang. Currently, there are only 3 helicopters in Building 2 to meet daily basic needs. One of them is a dedicated medical helicopter, which is basically not dispatched unless there is an emergency. Zhongqing was already waiting on the helicopter, and 2 men in black sent the iron cage up. The helicopter took off, and the lamb was jumping around in the iron cage. This is a conspiracy. They must be trying to separate me from my father. They think there is no point in me hiding in the cage. No, the third wife said that since you like to change into a sheep so much, She will send you to Nanshan Ranch for 2 days. She also asked Jin Xiaomei to inform Yan Qingcheng that there is no need to make up classes tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Zhong Qing said with a smile. It's a good thing that she doesn't have to make up lessons, but she's just being courteous for nothing, either to arouse or steal. She either wants to steal her father's hobby of Xiao Yang to make her more favored, or she wants to take the opportunity to irritate Lu Chang'an. Xiao Yang tilted his head, confirming that this is absolutely it's not a purely good thing. The little sheep must have been calculated again. I won't come out of the iron cage, the little sheep said firmly. Ching Ching, I'm hungry. I need to eat some fruit to have the strength to insist on being right with my mother. Zhong Qing took some big cherries from the refrigerator, put them on a plate and put them in the iron cage. Ching Ching, you are paying less and less attention to me now. Do you want me to say bad things about you in front of Dandan and remove you from the queue of waiting daughters-in-law? Xiao Yang looked at Bai Cherry, whose hooves were even bigger, said angrily. If he hadn't been wearing the nightmare armor, his soft fur would have stood up with anger. Ah! I'm the daughter-in-law waiting in line. Zhong Qing was startled, his cheeks turned red. What's going on? This daughter-in-law must be referring to Lu Chang'an's wife, right? Isn't this nonsense? Lu Chang'an has a serious girlfriend and many other things. Oh, so we have to queue up? Humph! The little sheep fell down in the iron cage, kicked her limbs, and adjusted herself into a comfortable posture. Zhong Qing must know that she should not think that she has swallowed, no, don't think that she has eaten tiger whip. She is a little vixen who does accounts for the tiger, but it is Dandan's decision whether she can participate in the palace fight as her daughter-in-law. The thighs of the little sheep are not only Lu Chang'an, but also Shangguan Dandan, who does all kinds of evil and does whatever he wants. Zhong Qing shook his head and didn't take the lamb's nonsense seriously. He just carefully removed the stems of the cherries, removed the pits, cut each cherry evenly into 4 slices, and then sliced the cherry flesh to form scrape off the edges and corners, then kneel outside the iron cage and feed the sheep piece by piece into their mouths. After a long flight, the helicopter stopped at Nanshan Ranch. 2 men in black removed the iron cage from the helicopter and transported it to the ranch behind the resort center. The man in black then left, and the little sheep peered at the door of the cage, suspicious in his heart. What on earth does mom want to do? Do you want me to learn from Emperor Suwu's shepherding? No, I am a sheep myself. Is there something powerful about it? The character is here to be Emperor Suwu, and is he going to be a pastor? Pu, the lamb spat. Only Lu Chang'an could herd the lamb, and the lamb would only follow Lu Chang'an to run around and play everywhere, and others would simply ignore it. At this time, groups of cattle and sheep from Nanshan Ranch appeared. They came to watch outside the iron cage. The lamb suddenly stood up excitedly. Looking at the entire Nanshan Ranch, they were all the people of the little fairy sheep. They once surrounded it, listened to its orders, and attacked the resort center Lu Chang'an was guarding. Crash a helicopter. Jumped over the fence and kicked off the bricks on the fence. Take a shower and pee in the pool. Pulling sheep dung balls and cow dung all over the yard. All the leaves of the potted plant were eaten. The little fairy sheep rushed into the center of the enemy army with great bravery and fought against Bai Hui, Zhong Qing, Yan Qingcheng, and Lu Chang'an with his own strength. He arched the chests of Bai Hui and Zhong Qing, trampled and tore Yan Qingcheng's hands. He was so disgusting with his study materials, but he also struggled with Lu Chang'an, and finally jumped off the roof of the building and left in style. The turbulent years have deceived people, and the mighty universe is bleeding. The little sheep's heart was surging. Seeing the leaderless cattle and sheep wandering around the pasture without any structure, as if they had lost their souls, they rushed out of the iron cage without hesitation. Hey, the little fairy sheep is back. You have a leader again. Seeing the lamb running like a black shadow on the green grassland, 2 men in black lying behind crawled forward and took away the iron cage. Returning to the community, Shang Guandandan stood at the door of the community and looked around for a few times. He walked under the sycamore tree, looked at his self-service vending machine, called up the running water and found that no business was completed today. Empires still rise and fall, let alone doing business. Shang Guandandan didn't care much. As the daughter-in-law of Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty, Shang Guandandan, like her husband, needed money, but had no good impression of businessmen. Everyone in the world knows that Emperor Wu was warlike, but relatively few people know that Emperor Wu was the founder of the imperial financial system for more than 2,000 years. Many strategic systems continue to this day and have influenced every Chinese for more than 2,000 years. Back then, when the Huns were in trouble, Emperor Wu wanted to use troops, but the treasury couldn't support it, so he asked big businessmen to provide some money. These things think that protecting the homeland and the country is a matter of the country. What does it have to do with me? They still had nothing to lose. Emperor Wu called for donations, but didn't receive any money. Later, Emperor Wu nationalized the operating rights of many industries and grabbed land overtly and covertly to save enough money. This gave Wei Qing and Huo Qubing the opportunity to build eternal achievements, and also established the people's deep recognition of the concept of country. Shang Guandandan's business is getting bigger and bigger now, but he does not regard himself as a businessman. Just like Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty made a lot of money, who would call him a businessman? To make money, you have to be unscrupulous like your husband. Shang Guandandan thought about two ways to make money: operating a self-service ticket vending machine and robbing banks proposed by Mozi. Zhou Shuling went upstairs and took some fruit from the refrigerator, but went to the kitchen to make juice. The fish today was particularly delicious, mainly because it was rich in fat. When she came back, she had to make some juice for them to relieve their tiredness, so that they would not feel tired when they woke up in the morning. Extremely dry. Zhou Dongdong saw his mother enter the kitchen and knew whether she would come out soon, so he took a cup, poured some yogurt, mixed some cola and started drinking. "Would you like to drink the drink I invented?" Zhou Dongdong enthusiastically invited brother Chang'an. As expected of your mother's son, Lu Chang'an shook his head and refused. The various noodle soups invented by Zhou Shuling are at least edible. The sight of Zhou Dongdong's things makes people less interested in trying them. "Do you think it looks like melted chocolate?" Zhou Dongdong continued to show off the drink he invented. Now children are not allowed to eat ice cream, so they have to drink drinks that look like ice cream. "When summer comes, I will put this in the refrigerator. It becomes chocolate. You will probably have diarrhea after drinking this," Lu Chang'an reminded her, and when the time comes, Zhou Shuling is puzzled that her child seems to have eaten nothing bad, and he will report Zhou Dongdong's actions. Lu Chang'an actually doesn't like eating Qiaolazi very much. It feels a bit too sweet and greasy. Only children and girls like to eat this flavor. But at least Zhou Dongdong proved that Qiaolazi will melt, so it's okay. There are always people who cheer for Zhou Dongdong. Shang Guandandan didn't bring a thermos with her when she went out. When she came back, she poured out the remaining effervescent water and then extended her thermos to Zhou Dongdong. Zhou Dongdong's cup was not big. When he saw Sister Dandan's big pot, he couldn't help but froze for a moment. Then he looked up at the sky and thought for a while. Then he hugged Sister Dandan's big pot and went to get the rest of the yogurt and Coca-Cola. He fell down and handed it back to her. The two of them sat next to Lu Chang'an and started drinking. "Make less juice," Lu Chang'an shouted towards the kitchen, and then started watching TV. "Okay." Lu Chang'an looked at them, expecting them to have diarrhea. You must know that sometimes diarrhea is caused by a weak intestinal digestive system, and sometimes it is just that the digestive system thinks that the owner of the body has eaten something like this. It needs to be excreted quickly. Shang Guandandan took out his mobile phone to chat on WeChat. Lu Chang'an glanced and saw that he was not chatting with her daughter-in-laws, but with a strange name that Lu Chang'an didn't recognize. The other party also sent a large amount of payment. The bill was sent to Shang Guandandan for confirmation. Lu Chang'an was a little surprised. This little old lady who almost fell into telecom fraud would also be defrauded in her transfer one day? It's better not to laugh at her. Lu Chang'an suppressed his smile. After all, if someone really deceived Shang Guandandan, Lu Chang'an would be a little annoyed. Even if the person was hiding in Southeast Asia or Africa, he would still have to spend a little effort to find the person and crush him. So Lu Chang'an watched the TV attentively, and waited for Shang Guandandan to finish the conversation, then casually asked, "How much money do you still have in your account?" Lu Chang'an asked about the account number, not how much money was in Shang Guandandan's sleeve pocket, in the jar, in the coffin, under the mattress, in the small TV case, and in the crack of the third brick at the foot of the bed on the left. Shang Guandandan hummed twice, opened the account and took a look at him. "I only have 67.50 cents left." "Where's your money?" Shang Guandandan's vending machine sold all kinds of extravagant candies, and she even increased the prices arbitrarily. Qin Yanan even spent a lot of money to buy all her goods. Lu Chang'an did the math. The amount of money Qin Yanan gave her was a lot of money. Is this the Qingming festival? Are our heroic spirits of the Han dynasty not allowed to enjoy some incense? Shang Guan sighed lazily. Lu Chang'an was stunned for a moment. In fact, he would also burn some money, paper, incense, and other things during the Qingming festival to commemorate some people who had left a deep impression on him, but he did not expect Shang Guandandan to do this. Those people from the Han dynasty, they probably didn't expect that someone of their contemporaries would offer incense to them more than 2,000 years later. "Did you transfer all your money to others to help you offer sacrifices and incense?" Lu Chang'an nodded and couldn't help but admire the Queen Mother's handiwork. 1 year's Qingming festival, 1 million incense money. It is necessary to explain that the millions here are fictitious to avoid misunderstanding that the Queen Mother's self-service vending machine has earned millions of dollars. After all, we are a royal family, and we still have guardians of the tomb. This money is not only for offering incense, but also for the daily expenses of protecting and repairing the tomb. Shang Guandandan clicked on the transfer confirmation picture on his phone and gave it to Lu Chang'an. The Protection and Management Center of the Imperial Tombs of the Western Han Dynasty. Lu Chang'an turned to look at Shang Guandandan. They are a serious, fully funded public institution, directly under the management of the Cultural Relics Bureau. The organization is still at the division level. Do you think of them as the guardians of the tombs? Not too good. Look at the Changling Mausoleum of Emperor Jiaozu in the west, and the Lu family in the east. I remember that there were more than 100 people buried with him, but now it is said that only more than 70 can be found. Xiao Xiongguo, Cao Xiongguo, Zhou Prime Ministers, Wang Teifu and others are all buried there. Here Shang Guandandan said while looking at the photo of the mausoleum on his phone. There are a total of 11 imperial mausoleums, known as the Valley of the Eastern Emperors. There was also the Ming tombs in the Ming dynasty. However, there were several emperors in the imperial mausoleums of the Western Han dynasty, and they were probably not very willing to compare themselves with the people in the Ming tombs. Lu Chang'an smiled. Laughter, a family tradition, makes people laugh generously. The Changling Mausoleum of Emperor Jiaozu is a bit abandoned, and I hope it can be repaired properly. From a distance, Emperor Wu's Maling Mausoleum has many palace-style buildings built next to it. General Huo's tomb is okay, but General Wei's tomb is a bit dilapidated. There are the tombs of the Shangguan family and the Huo family, and I also hope to repair them. Now, repairing these tombs is not an activity that can be done just by donating money. I also know, but I always think about them. When I was hiding in the coffin, I would wake up occasionally and let the coffin take me to and from various tombs to accompany them. Sometimes I would meet them. Tomb robbers, let them stay and be buried. Shang Guandandan took a big sip of Zhou Dongdong's special drink, then put down the thermos and leaned into Lu Chang'an's arms. Let's go take a look at it sometime. Lu Chang'an sighed. When you visited those cemeteries, did you meet anyone who was alive, or in a special state, dying but not dead? Or one whose body is fresh and looks like a living person? Shang Guandandan turned his head and looked at him suspiciously. Just ask. Do you think I don't know? There must be a woman you sniffed at back then buried there, Shang Guandandan asked loudly and alertly. No, forget it if I didn't see it. I just suspect that there are other creatures like you. Lu Chang'an looked as usual. He picked up Shang Guandandan's thermos and took a sip. What is this? Shang Guandandan took the opportunity to raise the bottom of the pot and drink him. Lu Chang'an struggled, grabbed the thermos bottle and wanted to drink her too. Little did he know that Shang Guandandan didn't resist like him at all. He opened his mouth wide and let him drink, like a bottomless pit. Forget it, such a woman couldn't be fed at all, so Lu Chang'an gave up after feeding her for a while. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 1056. Lu Chang'an felt that Shang Guandandan was a bit promiscuous, and her various abilities were incompatible with ordinary urban life. Normal people drink water from a cup with a capacity of 200 to 300 milliliters, but she uses a 5-liter thermos. When a normal person eats, she takes one bite and swallows it. She fills her mouth first and then swallows it slowly. After a normal person dies and returns to nature, she lies in a coffin and wanders around, covering millions of square kilometers of land, and finally finds Lu Chang'an, the only person she is familiar with. Logically speaking, her small coffin is Tesla's ancient civilization survival capsule, but Lu Chang'an feels that this small coffin is much more mysterious than Tesla's. Maybe he just didn't know enough. Anyway, Lu Chang'an had a history of seizing Shang Guandandan's pony carriage. Shang Guandandan was very wary of Lu Chang'an approaching the coffin and wouldn't let him play with it. Tesla said that there are only 2 such survival capsules. One was photographed under the Antarctic ice cap by Lu Chang'an accompanying Tesla, and the other was Shang Guandandan's. If there are really only 2, then what was that thing that looked very similar to a life support capsule in the architectural structural drawings in Qin Minglan's hand last time? Could it be that one and Tesla's, these 2 are the survival capsules left by ancient civilizations, and the small coffin in Shang Guandandan's hand is something else? It is very possible that Lu Chang'an always felt that this small coffin looked like some kind of object from the world of Immortals. Probably some war broke out in another world of Immortals. The immortal cultivators were overcoming tribulations, passing through space rifts, or falling when they ascended. Fell into this world. Maybe Shang Guandandan is a cultivator from another world. When she came to this world, she only had the little coffin to accompany her. At the same time, she also lost her memory. She only accepted her identity as Shang Guandandan, and stubbornly believed that Lu Chang'an was her moth. It's just that Lu Chang'an immediately discovered that his way of thinking was becoming more and more divorced from reality, and he was imaginative and deviated from materialist dialectics in order to pursue logical rationality. Isn't this following Zhu Huntang's path? It was too dangerous. Lu Chang'an reflected once today and examined himself. He quickly stopped his random thoughts and picked up the quantum mechanics series of books, which can be called modern theoretical works on immortality, to read through them. But, I don't know what that little lamb is doing now. Lu Chang'an touched his cell phone, but didn't ask any more. He was probably doing something that he couldn't do even if he had cerebral congestion for 10 years. Gu Jiao is a German who looks exactly like a Chinese. The physics textbooks he writes are relatively easy to understand. If you can't even understand his 2 quantum mechanics, you should basically give up studying this field. Lu Chang'an flipped through the pages at will. After a while, he felt the pressure of a heavy object on his shoulders. He turned around and found Zhou Dongdong leaning against him, with his mouth slightly open, looking intently at the book in Lu Chang'an's hand. Lu Chang'an looked at the text on the page and then at the cover to make sure that what he was reading was quantum physics and not some picture book for young children. "What are you looking at?" Lu Chang'an asked. "Brother Chang'an, is this the book your teacher asked you to read? I can't even understand it." "No, I'll see for myself." "You can't understand it? Then your teacher didn't let you read it, so you still want to read these books that you can't understand. Is it to make us think you are awesome?" Zhou Dongdong turned to the side and looked at it further away. "I still can't understand the book in Brother Chang'an's hand. I don't know what it's talking about that children find useless. What's the use of making you think I'm powerful?" Lu Chang'an couldn't understand. "The most beautiful sisters on TV are married to people with the best martial arts skills. If you make my mother feel awesome, she will give birth to a kid who is just like me, as smart and brave as me, and they will be my younger siblings." Zhou Dongdong stared at Lu Chang'an expectantly with his eyes wide open, but although Brother Chang'an was very powerful, he didn't look very powerful after reading these useless books. Zhou Dongdong only hopes that Brother Chang'an can jump up and down and do somersaults in front of his mother as if he is very powerful in martial arts. Lu Chang'an didn't have the words to deal with her for a while, so he could only frown and look at Zhou Dongdong. Shang Guandandan giggled while holding a thermos. Zhou Shuling came out of the kitchen, holding a large bunch of juice and several cups, saying hello. Everyone drank some to relieve their tiredness and said it was her newly invented juice. It rains heavily during the Qingming festival, and pedestrians encounter ghosts on the road. In the morning, Lu Chang'an woke up to the sound of rain hitting the windows. The morning light spread like mist, with a halo color. He squinted his eyes, and the raindrops condensed into lines on the window glass and flowed down. Lu Chang'an couldn't help but think of the scene yesterday when Zhu Huntang opened the window to challenge him and he threw her down, and shook his head with a smile. "I also felt that something was wrong. I went to the amusement park yesterday to see the sticky Zhu Huntang. I neither came to play with him nor called to bother him for such a long time. Treat him as a tool to accompany you to the amusement park, and then put him aside after using it?" Lu Chang'an touched his cell phone and checked that there were no annoying messages of unknown meaning from Zhu Huntang, so he called Sumei. The phone was connected. "Hello," the voice was low and lazy, as if it was ringing in his ears along with the patter of rain. "Morning, where is Zhu Huntang?" "She." Sumei didn't expect that Lu Chang'an would call to ask Lu Chang'an so early in the morning. She suddenly became more awake. She was really almost tricked by the little mutton skewers. Lu Chang'an came to ask after just one night. Yesterday, Zhu Huntang turned into a lamb and got into the iron cage by himself. I took him to attend the meeting. It looked like he was tortured to death, and then he refused to get out of the iron cage. I took him. It was sent to Nanshan Ranch with the iron cage. When it saw the sheep, it shouted that it was going to be the leader and rushed out," Sumei explained helplessly. "You got into an iron cage by yourself? Where did you get the iron cage?" "I did it." "Did you deliberately set her up to get into the iron cage?" "Yes, we need to let her know the threats she may face when she turns into an animal. Look at her running around like a sheep all day long. Sometimes her faces, those security guards can't keep up with her. What if Tian is running around? What should I do if I enter the mutton hotpot city?" "That's true, but from now on, let's forget about beatings and scoldings. This kind of method of locking her in an iron cage should be used sparingly. She is not really a domestic animal that can be slaughtered." After saying that, Lu Chang'an said goodbye. Sumei was not sleepy at all. Why did he call her back to Junsha? Obviously there is nothing she can do about Zhu Huntang. She is disciplining Zhu Huntang, and he has many opinions. Are all these fathers so ambitious and short-handed? It seems that it is purely accidental that Ye Sijin and Qin Peng have grown up by his side. That Zhou Dongdong is the normal situation. If he doesn't take over and discipline them well, Zhu Huntang will just be a big Zhou Dongdong. After Lu Chang'an hung up the phone, he sat up straight and watched the rain beating against the window quietly. After a moment of trance, his phone received many photos and video files that Su Mei had taken yesterday. Su Mei had probably chosen them intentionally. These photos and videos made Lu Chang'an's mouth slightly raise involuntarily. The scenes and conversations that made Lu Chang'an's head smoke with anger seemed to have never happened. Gradually the rain stopped. En Nuan sent a message asking if he was free today, and Lu Chang'an had no choice but to tell her that he would take Zhou Dongdong, Zhou Shuling, and Shang Guandandan to visit the graves in the Martyrs Park today. En Nuan is fine, but Hans Hizi is back during the Qingming festival. Today, Hans Hizi and she will probably go shopping in the city center. Lu Chang'an is not free, so forget it. Girls chatter and talk a lot when they are together, and boyfriends often have no sense of presence. Powerful. I wonder if Hans Hizi knows that her parents are planning to divorce. Many families will begin to split after their children go to college. Professor Ling is still young, and Professor Han is naturally capable of finding a younger and more beautiful wife to reorganize the family, but Hans Hizi probably feels that from now on, no one will be completely his. Home, whether you go to your mother or your father, is like being a guest, and the family rebuilt by your parents does not belong to you after all. The divorce rate is getting higher and higher now. It is probably a rare blessing for children in the future to have a complete family to accompany them when they grow up. Zhou Dongdong also has only one mother. Zhou Shuling used to consider that Zhou Dongdong was young and it took a long time to cultivate relationships when reorganizing the family. But now that Zhou Shuling has a good financial income, she feels that she can also provide Zhou Dongdong with good growth conditions. I have no idea of finding another one. Lu Chang'an remembered how he had just met Zhou Shuling and Zhou Dongdong's mother and daughter. The little mother and children were barely alive, pitiful, and struggling to live. He couldn't help laughing. Human beings always have a lot of darkness and cruelty that are amazing, but there are always these beautiful individuals who make him feel cute and have a strong desire to protect them. Lu Chang'an opened the quilt, and the slightly moist air was cool. He opened the window and saw that there seemed to be a few raindrops floating outside the window. The heavy rain during the Qingming festival had finally stopped, but he still felt like he had encountered a ghost. Shang Guandandan moved the bronze coffin out and placed it under the sycamore tree. She herself was sitting on the coffin wearing a moon-white dark dress. Her black hair was flowing on the cover, surrounded by mysterious and complicated patterns. The beautiful girl, the slender figure carries the coolness of the morning, like a scene from a Chinese ghost story. There is a lapis lazuli hairpin next to her ear, inlaid with many fine white flowers carved from shells, and a few strands of gold threads are strung with pearls, which immediately adds a lot of nobility. Her ears are pink and tender, and her neck is even more delicate and soft. She raised her head and glanced at Lu Chang'an. Her expression changed slightly, and then she lowered her head to avoid looking at Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an was a little surprised. He turned sideways out of the window and landed on the wet and sticky ground with his feet. He approached Shang Guandandan and looked at her beautiful face that was as familiar as ever. I saw your face just now. It was obviously more mature than it is now. It looks like what you will look like when you grow up. Lu Chang'an was very sure that he saw it right. It's the end of the month, and the boss gives me a monthly pass. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 1057. Shang Guandandan raised her hands high, and her sleeves slid down her smooth and delicate skin, revealing her two white arms. She twisted her body, then put her hands down and searched in her sleeve pockets. There were no mulberry leaves? Nothing. So Shang Guandandan ignored Lu Chang'an, got up and stood on the coffin lid, jumped up, struggled to pick a sycamore leaf, and then put it on his forehead. Shh. He breathed a sigh of relief. Shang Guandandan pinched the tip of the sycamore leaf, then raised his owl and started drinking water. Fortunately, he was already invisible and didn't need to worry about the annoying moths. It is difficult for normal people to understand the verbal behavior of mental patients. In fact, the underlying logical thinking of both parties is completely different. Shang Guandandan's current behavior is based on the thought and cognition that by putting the leaf on my forehead, I am using the invisibility technique and it is effective for Lu Chang'an, which is actually not true at all. At present, only Zhu Huntang, Zhou Dongdong, and Song Dazi are the only children in the world who recognize this invisibility technique. Lu Chang'an looked up at Shang Guandandan, who was standing on the coffin lid drinking water. He thought of a detail that only a smart and alert person could notice. Later in the year, while playing at Gao Dui's house, he broke into the Han tomb that Li Hongfang had dug at night and found a living corpse suspected of Wang Zhenjun inside. The appearance of the living corpse was very similar to Shang Guandandan, but there were some differences. It was a little more mature than the current Shang Guandandan, and it looked like he was 17 or 18 years old. That day when Lu Chang'an came to Shang Guandandan with the living corpse in his arms, she had a detail that Lu Chang'an didn't pay attention to at the time. When Lu Chang'an kicked the door open, Shang Guandandan looked at Lu Chang'an holding the living corpse and said in confusion, "I'm attracted by you." I took him down to sleep. Continuation chapter 44. Now think about it carefully, they look alike, but even Lu Chang'an can spot a lot of differences. How could she mistake herself? Unless she already has another face that is more similar to that living corpse. Just like the face she showed when she was sitting on the coffin without Lu Chang'an noticing. Isn't this right? How can an immortal person only have one face? Just like Lu Chang'an has more than one identity and appearance, Shang Guandandan should be the same. Lu Chang'an's different identities and appearances have different lives and stories behind them. So what is the reason behind Shang Guandandan's changing face? He didn't ask directly because Shang Guandandan wouldn't answer. Shang Guandandan was always reluctant to answer Lu Chang'an's serious questions, mainly because she had a problem with her brain. She always felt that Lu Chang'an asked her these questions because she could now be used to refine elixirs, because he was still thinking about the night of bloodshed in Viang Palace, because he wanted to disobey the rules, because he wanted to take possession of her coffin, and so on. Lu Chang'an also suspected that she was still in a semi-awakened state, confused, and she might not be clear about many things. You can continue to be invisible. I'm going to buy beef stewed with radish, Lu Chang'an said, looking at the eyes that were moving under the leaves of the Shangguan sycamore tree. I want to go. Shang Guandandan hurriedly picked off the leaves of the sycamore tree. Buying vegetables and breakfast was a major event that showed the Queen Mother lived a smart life. She had to participate in it. Lu Chang'an didn't say anything. She would follow him whether he wanted to take her there or not. Now he could often walk as far as the vegetable market without turning around frequently to try to make eye contact with him. She let him take the initiative to carry her while walking. Great progress. Wait, I can fly away, Shang Guandandan called Lu Chang'an from behind. Fly away? Lu Chang'an looked back at her. You turn around first, I need to prepare. Lu Chang'an turned around as he was told, wondering in his mind, is she going to transform? What kind of bird would he become, following him less conspicuously? Just as he was thinking about it, an object weighing less than 100 kilograms struck him steadily on the back. After the ordinary impact, Shang Guandandan wrapped his hands and feet around Lu Chang'an's waist and neck. You are a flying squirrel. Lu Chang'an thought of the domesticated flying squirrels. When their owners greet them, they will jump and land on their owners with a snap. What is a flying squirrel? Is it Xiaotang's new pet? Shang Guan rested his cheek on her arm and looked sideways at Lu Chang'an. She has almost become a pet herself, so why should she keep a new pet? Lu Chang'an was a little angry when he remembered that she was now hanging out with the sheep at Nanjun Ranch. The flying squirrel is a flying squirrel, a small species of the squirrel family. Animals, but flying squirrels are not squirrels. Squirrels are rodents in the family Sciuridae. Flying squirrels give birth to 1 litter a year, with 1 to 4 babies in each litter. Before the female squirrel gives birth, her breast muscles will swell, which is similar to yours. What? Shang Guandandan was ashamed and annoyed. Although Lu Chang'an pretended to be different and said that flying squirrels and squirrels were different, they must be about the same size. After their chest muscles swelled, they would be similar to Shang Guandandan? Although Shang Guandandan didn't care at all about this meaningless thing other than breastfeeding, based on his endless infatuation with the wet nurse in Viang Palace, he was deliberately insulting the noble and great Queen Mother by describing her like this. What? You and Zhu Huntang are almost the same. They are both happily pets. Lu Chang'an rolled his eyes at her and dragged her butt with his backhand. Otherwise, she would be like a dangling bag when walking. His back and walking are awkward. Xiao Tang and I are the same. In Xiao Tang's words, we are women with breasts, but we don't show off. Only a woman like Yaya needs to prove to you that she is a female that is very suitable for breeding offspring. Only then have we adaptively evolved a figure that can attract you. Shang Guandandan has a broad mind and does not want to argue with him on this issue. He is rebellious and rude. Does the Queen Mother still have the same understanding as him? After all, there is no way to dethrone him again, that's probably it, so he simply gave up on himself and became more and more unscrupulous. Shang Guan touched Lu Chang'an's hair, and the Queen Mother felt pity for the incompetent moth who talked nonsense in anger. Why are you moving the coffin out so early in the morning? Lu Chang'an saw that she seemed to be stroking his hair intently, so he took the opportunity to ask. The weather forecast said it will be sunny today, so I took the coffin out to bask in the sun. The clothes, quilts, household items, etc. at home need to be taken out to bask in the sun from time to time. This is what people who know how to live do. Shang Guandandan answered casually. Lu Chang'an frowned. This time he casually asked questions, but no useful information was obtained. As for the fact that she was able to move the huge and heavy coffin out to bask in the sun, it proved that she was very strong. This was not useful information at all. Whose household items include a coffin? Obviously, in my eyes, small coffins are furniture items, but you still ask such a question. Isn't it a bit stupid? Don't say refrains. The weather is good today. My son is good and my mother loves him. He is stupid and wants to eat Nina, but my mother doesn't have it. He looks for Yaya. Yaya is shy. She makes milk and feeds him. After eating, he drives away his mother. Pregnant with the baby, Yaya. Lu Chang'an desperately tore Shang Guandandan off his body and threw him back to the community, while he went to buy beef stewed with radish. Wu Dan was so light that the beef stewed radish shop that Lu Chang'an went to was the same shop where Shang Guandandan often took Zhou Dongdong to eat while pushing his electric car. The store has been open for a while, but it is just getting ready for business. When you lift the lid of a pot of fragrant beef stewed with radish, the entire store and surrounding area are filled with the aroma of meat. The open kitchen had a clear view, and 2 clerks were each holding a bowl and drinking happily. Lu Chang'an asked, "Can I pack it now?" Yes, a clerk quickly put down the bowl in his hand. This young man was not a regular customer, but he often brought a little girl and children who walked around the area with him. He looked familiar after seeing him often. I want 4, 5, well, 6. 6 extra large bowls to pack, Lu Chang'an said as he looked at Building 2 of Bailong Center, which was just around the corner. As the most high-end commercial complex in Juncha, it stands in the city center, towering into the sky and exuding the smell of wealth. Across the street, there are many affordable shops in Juncha that exude a charming atmosphere, offering various milk teas, snacks, and popular brands. The pedestrian street is also the most eye-catching location where Juncha appears in various photos on the internet. Hello, it's packed, the clerk said with a smile on her face. These 6 super large bowls were packed, which was basically more than half of the first pot of beef stewed with radish. Lu Chang'an held it with both hands, and the portion was full. Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong discovered the store, and it tastes very good. The key is that the radishes here are really good. You must know that beef stewed with radish, if you want the soup to be delicious, the most important thing is the radish instead of the beef. It's just that the radishes sold in various supermarkets nowadays often have a bland taste, are either too dry and lack enough water, or are slightly less sweet or even spicy in the mouth. Even the so-called high-mountain organic radishes in the high-end lifestyle supermarket in Bailong Center are mediocre. The radishes Lu Chang'an bought to make beef stew are not as good as the ones in front of him. I don't know where they bought their radishes. He is also a caterer himself, and if he rashly inquires about other people's purchase information, he will inevitably be suspected of having bad intentions in competition with his peers, and it is better not to ask more. He is very particular about people. Lu Chang'an packed 6 extra large bowls and went to the downstairs of number 2 first. He called a man in black who was patrolling and gave 2 extra large bowls to him to give to Zhongqing and Sumei. I just ate Zonking's fish yesterday, so it's the proper etiquette to return a breakfast this morning. Zhongqing belongs to Sumei. If I only bought it for Zhongqing but didn't seem to consider Sumei, it would probably cause some unnecessary trouble to Zhongqing. When Lu Chang'an returned to the community, the coffin under the sycamore tree had disappeared. It seemed that Shang Guandandan also realized that the weather forecast was unreliable. Today's rainy day was not suitable for displaying household items. He looked at the door of the utility room and remembered that when he moved the coffin in, he deliberately dismantled the doorframe. Shang Guandandan did not need to do this. He could move the coffin in and out at will. It seemed that this thing could be enlarged or reduced. The function is a bit interesting. An unloading truck stopped under the sycamore tree, and the porters were unloading the goods. In addition to Shang Guandandan's favorite champagne, there was also red wine in oak barrels being carried from the truck. Judging from the cautious attitude of the porters, this stuff it shouldn't be cheap. He would send champagne to Shang Guandandan. The person who sent the champagne was naturally Li Hongfang. Lu Chang'an raised the beef stewed radish in his hand and said, "I didn't know you were coming, why don't you just eat mine?" No need. Li Hongfang was not in the mood to be greedy. If the taste of Brother Lu could make her have the urge to feast, she quickly said, "Brother Lu, I am being watched. Someone is checking me." Lu Chang'an nodded. Li Hongfang was also a typical type of person who would eventually get what he wanted. I always felt that she was being targeted this time, which was probably related to some of her own suicide attempts. For example, when Sumei and Qin Yinan's car collided with each other on the campus of Hunan University, Qin Zici was probably also in Qin Yinan's car. The great Chinese People's Liberation Army is invincible.